Hello everybody. Before we start prayers and the meeting, please could I ask all present to treat everyone in this chamber with respect, including my chaplain, Reverend Jean Hurlston, whilst prayers are being said. Could I also remind members about timings and the traffic light system, which enables members to ensure they finish their speeches and contributions in time, so that it is fair for all that wish to contribute. Thank you. Please ask my chaplain to say prayers.
God bless this chamber as we gather here. We represent diverse roles and positions and bring with us our personal life experiences, memories and beliefs. We are, however, one community of workers, residents and supporters of Oldham. So guide us, we pray, to seek the common good. Amen.
Please be seated.
I don't think so, no. Yes, I am, yeah.
Right. The doors are there for members' security. Now, if we can carry on with the meeting without further interruptions. If members wish to remove their jackets, they may do so. May I remind members and members of the public that the meeting will be streamed live on a webcast from the Council's website. We now move to the agenda. Item 1, apologies. I have received apologies for absence from Councillors Saj Hussain, H. Gloucester, Ibrahim, McManus, Hay Pythian, Salamat, Sykes and Sharp. Move to item 2 on the agenda. Is Council agreed that the Council minutes from the meeting held on the 25th of May 2022 be agreed as a correct record? Item 3, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from members in respect of matters to be determined by the Council at this meeting? Councillor Gloucester.
Declaration in relation to the CSE motion, Madam Mayor. It's an interesting view of my occupational pension from GMP.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkinson.
Madam Mayor, declaration of interest in relation to the CSE inquiry, retired police officer in respect of pension.
Any other? I'd like to register that my husband works for GMP. Councillor Williams.
Pecuniary interest in my partner works for GMP.
Councillor Murphy.
Interest in CS motion by employment of Greater Manchester Police.
Yeah, because of the noise, I'm afraid, can ask members to speak a bit louder so we can hear you. Thank you. Move on to item 4, which is urgent business. There are no items of urgent business. Item 5, communications. I have had notice from the Leader of the Council that a statement will be made. Councillor Chatterton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I rise to make a statement and an update on Oldham Council's response to the publication of the CSE review a couple of weeks ago. So, just over 2 weeks ago, we met in this chamber to receive and to discuss the findings of the independent review into historic safeguarding practice in Oldham. The review found that while we were aware of the issues and were working hard to tackle it, the protection and support we gave to children and young people facing sexual exploitation in Oldham was not good enough. The report made for distressing reading, most notably where it detailed the experiences of those victims and the missed opportunities to keep them safe from harm. And those same findings have led to shock and anger among people in Oldham, and understandably so. People in Oldham expect us to act in response, and tonight I want to start to map out how we can do that as a council and as a town. Our approach has 4 key aims. Firstly, to seek justice for victims, making sure the people who committed these awful crimes are made to pay for them. Secondly, we must make sure that victims and survivors of this dreadful abuse are given all the support they need to seek the justice they deserve, to seek answers and redress from those who failed them, and to be able to access any other support they might need to improve their lives. Thirdly, we have to restore trust and confidence in our vital social care services. Whilst we absolutely accept that practice on CSD historically was not good enough, people need to know that they can report concerns to us and that we will act to keep them safe. Fourthly, we can use the review as an opportunity to highlight the issue of child abuse, to educate and inform people, to spot the signs, to let them know how to report concerns, and to be clear about how we will act to keep people safe if they do. And finally, we must respect the role that everyone in this room has to be part of our response. We have all been elected to represent people in our own wards. We've been elected to run local services for the good of local people. It has to be everybody in this room's job to seek action and improvement on the issue of CSE and on wider safeguarding. As I laid out, our first priority must be to contribute to the success of Operation Sherwood, working with Greater Manchester Police to seek justice and secure justice for the victims and survivors of these terrible crimes. Greater Manchester Police have launched Operation Sherwood, which will investigate any historic cases of child sexual exploitation in this borough. The team will investigate cases of historic abuse from any time period and then work diligently and properly to secure convictions. Greater Manchester Police, in addition, have invested in additional officers to support staff to resource Operation Sherwood, and the council will do the same. We'll invest in additional social workers to support police investigations and additional support staff to make sure they get rapid access to the documents and reports that they need. Alongside this, we provide additional staff to support victims who come forward seeking justice through Operation Sherwood, whether that's advocacy and signposting support, advice on housing or additional mental health support. Madam Mayor, can I just say, a lot of people in this room protest to want a response to the CSE review and want to know what we are doing for those victims. I'm here to lay this out.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're not being helpful. You know, the leader is on her feet trying to make a statement, and please have the good grace to listen. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'm going to continue because actually the vast majority of people in this borough do want to hear about how we are going to respond to this and continue to keep people safe. We will make sure that help is available and aligned to Greater Manchester Police's operation so that the women and girls who are victims of these crimes are supported while they bravely seek just punishment for their abusers. Sherwood will begin by investigating the cases referenced in Oldham Independent Review, but it won't stop there. It will also take on any historic case from any time period, looking to see if perpetrators can be found and convicted. As part of this, we will work with Greater Manchester Police to jointly promote Operation Sherwood, to bring forward victims who have not yet come forward or those whose cases were investigated or reported previously but convictions were not secured. These cases will be looked at with a fresh approach by dedicated trained police officers who specialise in these cases. Similar investigations in both Rochdale and Manchester have led to convictions for historic abuse, and we'll do everything we can to make sure the same happens here in Oldham. Victims are at the heart of our response to this review, and those referenced in the report are our first priority, both to try and address our past failings and to make sure they are given every help to continue to seek answers from agency who should have supported them and seek justice through GMP's new investigations. As I've stated previously, I'll be writing to all victims referenced in the report to offer our apologies on behalf of the Council for the errors made in the past. Within those letters, I will also offer each of the victims individual meetings with me and our Children's Services to discuss any individual needs and issues. The direct lines of communication with those and other victims will remain open as we accept they will need time to come to terms with the report's findings and decide what steps they wish to take next. I would like to reassure members in this chamber that work is already in place to support victims and survivors. Before the review was published, the Oldham Council, Greater Manchester Police and victims' charities, including the Sexual Assault Referral Centre, Victim Support and mental health charities, had worked together to develop an approach to support victims who may have been affected by the findings of the report. That included those mentioned and referenced in the report and any other local victims of abuse. That approach has included a dedicated helpline for initial contact, access to independent victim support via the Sexual Assault Referral Centre based at St Mary's Hospital, and agreed pathways for other support including mental health and housing. The support we built in anticipation of the report is already supporting women and girls who have come forward to seek help and advice. Since the report's publication, a number of people have come forward using the helpline to report child sexual exploitation or to seek help in dealing with historic abuse. Our trained social care have been able to help women and girls access a range of support. Some simply want answers about their own care, want access to their records, for example, and some need help with housing or access to counselling or support group. However, we recognise that these additional measures of support need to be resourced in the longer term and will need to shift in response to demand and in response to feedback from victims themselves. As a result, we are looking to extend our current helpline offer, which will continue to be staffed by trained safeguarding professionals so that it operates throughout Operation Sherwood and beyond should people continue to need it. We have commissioned a local charity, Keeping Our Girls Safe, to offer advocacy and signposting for victims. This will make sure that they are signposted to council services where they would not wish to use our current helpline offer, but also signposted to independent advice from advocacy groups and legal advisors. It's important this signposting service is independent from the council and is victim-led. Hopefully it will allow victims to effectively seek answers and challenge agencies about the care they received. We've also asked for help from Keeping Our Girls Safe to establish a steering group made up of victims and survivors of child sexual exploitation so that they can oversee our work and offer their advice on how better we can support others. While talking about victim support, I cannot fail to mention specifically one of the findings relating to Sophie. In her case, what the review found was that we and GMP let her down repeatedly as a child, contributing to the further abuse she suffered. However, it's also found that when she came back to us as an adult, rightly seeking answers about those failings and seeking redress for them, we treated her badly again. And in fact, the report finds that we sought to minimise our failings in order to reduce the risk of challenge to us. I know a lot of other people found the report incredibly hard and challenging to read, but that finding actually hit me particularly hard, partly because I could not understand how we could repeatedly fail to acknowledge our past failings. What in our system has led us to respond to Sophie's queries and complaints in the way that we did less than 10 years ago? In response, I immediately asked the Chief Executive to review Sophie's contact with us as an adult, to look at what we could have done better and to understand why our response was not transparent at the time. I await the findings of that review and will act on them as needed. That may mean dealing with staff should be found to have acted inappropriately, but also looking at our procedures and policies to make sure this cannot happen again. However, I accept that many of our residents need to be reassured that we are not continuing those failings and that our practice has improved. The truth is that there are a lot of ways the Council assures itself and assures national bodies that we are doing all we can to keep children and young people safe, that we are improving the way we do things and that we are learning from other areas' best practice. Firstly, children's services are regularly inspected by Ofsted, whether that's a whole service inspection or focused inspections on individual practice areas, themes or individual children's homes. The findings of each of these inspections and visits is published publicly on the Ofsted website. Recent visits acknowledge the work we are doing to improve our social care practice, showing that we are heading in the right direction to become a good council in this regard. We have an independent safeguarding partnership chaired externally by Henry Giller that oversees our work to keep people in the borough safe. It holds us, the police and other organisations to account for our safeguarding activity and is outside of the Council's control, publishing its work and analysis of our practice publicly on its website. In addition, Oldham has established a Getting to Good board dedicated to our work to improve children's services and ahead of our next Ofsted inspection. This board is chaired independently by the Department for Education. There is a wealth of oversight and inspection of these services, and the methods we have in place for assurance on these issues are robust. However, because we'd all like to see the pace and scale of improvement increase, where it can, we are also looking to partner with other councils who excel in dealing with CSE or have the best procedures and approaches in local government. We will use these relationships to share learning and best practice among professionals across social care. We have also scheduled a series of professional learning events to share the findings of the Oldham Review, the findings from the National Inquiry into Sexual Abuse and the learning from other national reviews. In talking about insurance, we cannot ignore the fact that trust and confidence in our social care services has been damaged by the publication of the review and by the nearly 3-year discussion and speculation on the issue of grooming and child abuse in the borough. There is a natural distrust which has formed among some of our residents towards some of our services. Trust in social care is vital if people are to come forward and report our concerns. They need to believe those concerns will be acted on robustly and with integrity. If they do not believe that we will act and therefore fail to report concerns, young people and children could come to harm. The report makes clear that we have worked hard to raise awareness of the issue of CSE, but we must continue to promote our work to keep children and young people safe, to educate people to spot the signs of abuse and to have clear messages about how to report it. Over the coming weeks, we will launch a high-impact campaign to promote the work of our safeguarding services and offer clear advice about how residents and businesses can play their part in spotting abuse and reporting it. This campaign will be led by our Oldham Safeguarding Partnership and supported by a victim steering group. Finally, we must make sure that everyone in the council and everyone in this chamber and local residents of this borough understand their role in keeping children and young people safe. Central to this is ensuring ownership of both challenges and solutions to tackling historic and current child abuse across party political divides. This cannot and should not become a political issue. Keeping children safe is vastly more important than any of us in this chamber. We will establish a cross-party CSE Assurance Response Group with representatives from all parties represented in the chamber to oversee our response to the review and our wider improvements to safeguarding practice and to support the work of Victims Steering Group. It should not be for me or any one party to determine how that group will work, so I propose to bring back the proposed terms of reference for that group to a future council meeting, and in the meantime to host a workshop for all members to develop them together. Alongside this, our children's services are also working to redevelop our member training on CSE and wider safeguarding with support from local charities and advocacy groups. This approach aims to respond to the finding in this report, to ensure justice for victims, make sure they are supported to access all the support they need,
Ladies and gentlemen in the
support
gallery,
to seek further answers.
can I just say, there's some people want to hear what Amanda's got to say. Now, it might not suit your agenda, just come here and make a noise. Now, please be quiet.
This approach aims to respond to the findings in this report, to ensure justice for victims and make sure they are supported to access all the support they need, including support to seek further answers from us as an organisation and making sure that our current practice continues to improve. It allows us to do what's right, focus on those who have suffered as victims of these evil crimes, and ensure anyone who needs support now, who needs help to stay safe now, has the confidence and trust in our services that they need to come forward and seek help. But I need to be clear what this strategy won't do. It won't satisfy, as we can hear tonight, those who do not agree with the finding that the Council did not seek to cover up either the issue of CSE or the difficulties in tackling it. Those people, and there are some of them in this room tonight, are not happy with this report and its findings, but equally, those people will not be happy with a second independent review or inquiry led by another body or bodies unless that report found something that has proven to be untrue. We did not cover up CSE in this town. We cannot keep having inquiry after inquiry seeking a different answer to the same question. It serves nobody. It would not deliver justice for historic victims, it would not secure further convictions for perpetrators of this horrendous, abhorrent crime, and it would not help us to shift our current social care practice on towards becoming good. Instead, we must keep improving and keep learning while acknowledging the challenges and failings of the past, securing justice, supporting victims, raising awareness and taking ownership. Those things need to be our areas of focus as we move forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Chadderton. Moving on with the agenda, item 6. There are 3 petitions the Council to note. Item 7, Youth Council. There are no items of Youth Council business. Item 8, question time. This part of the agenda is question time, where Council will consider all questions submitted in the order received, starting with public questions. There is a 30-minute time limit for public questions, and once this time limit expires, no further questions will be asked. There is no right of reply to answers given, and I will be reading out the questions. If the time limit has expired and a member of the public has submitted a question which has been ruled in for consideration, the question and response will be published on the Council's website. The first question has been submitted by Megan Birchall. With Oldham Pride being held next weekend, could relevant Cabinet member update the Council on what steps Oldham Council is taking to support LGBT people in the borough? I call on Councillor Taylor to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you so much for this question, Megan. Oldham Council is proud to be supporting Oldham Pride this year, and we're looking forward to celebrating with our LGBT+ community next weekend. The Council is helping to financially support this year's event, as well as supporting the event management too. We want to make sure it is a huge success. Oldham's Labour councillors will be there to take part in the celebrations, and we'd urge as many Oldhamers as possible to get out there and support the event. In addition to this, we work closely with LGBT+ groups across the borough in our work to tackle hate crime and improve hate crime reporting. We also work across schools, colleges and our partners to promote tolerance and celebrate our borough's amazing diversity. Through our Equality Advisory Group, we seek the views of the community on policies and current issues to make sure we're making decisions that fit the needs of everyone in the borough. But we're always keen to do more if we can. So if there are any suggestions that you have for how we can be more supportive and more inclusive, please do let us know. Thank you.
The next question has been submitted by Chris Charters. With Oldham Athletic relegated out of the Football League last season, we have seen the consequences of football's failure to regulate club ownership. Will the Council work with Oldham Athletic fans to explore options to help save the club and ensure its legacy as a founding member of the Football League is preserved for future generations? I call on Councillor Chadderton to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Council remain consistent in our approach to ensuring the future success of Oldham Athletic Football Club for the benefit of the residents and for the fans across the borough. And I don't think you need to be a season ticket holder at Oldham to know how much value a lot of people in this town place on Oldham Athletic as a football club. We, and I'm sure everybody was delighted to hear the news of the new ownership for Latics. This is really good news for the club, for its supporters, and for the whole borough, after despair, heartache, a lot of anger over the past few years that's played out very publicly. We're looking forward to working with the new owners and understanding more about their plans to take the club forward. The club will continue to have our full support, and we wish them well for the coming season, while keenly await confirmation about new arrangements to allow the Council and the various fan groups to support and enhance the future of the club. We all want to see Latics back in the Football League. It will give the whole town a boost. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The next question has been submitted by Lynn Kelly. It is now 1 year since the ex-leader of Oldham Council, Aruj Shah, had her car firebombed. There was clear CCTV footage of the attack, and it has been shared across the world as we have had news stories portraying Oldham as racist. Even our own council has contributed to this allegation via its social media pages. If someone is in a position as high as the ex-leader of Oldham Council can be attacked in this way, and with the police failing to prosecute anyone, especially with the CCTV footage as proof, then doesn't it send out a clear message that it is open season for other criminals to do the same to any of our residents? Hence, perhaps, where there has recently been a huge rise in arson attacks throughout our borough. More of GMP failures to stop this. do for the interests of democracy and as a demonstration to her commitment to the rule of law, will the new leader of Oldham Council now write to the Superintendent Chris Bowen, Oldham District Commander, demanding he issues an update on the progress investigating the firebomb of Arush Shah's car? Is it not right to see that we, the townfolk, are portrayed as racist when the CCTV coverage clearly shows quite different? I call on Councillor Chadderton to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm unaware of any news stories relating to the shocking attack on a councillor's car that portrayed Oldhamers as racist. What the reports were probably referencing is the undeniable scale of racist abuse suffered by the former leader both online and in real life. It is not for me to determine where this was related to that offence. It's for Greater Manchester Police to thoroughly investigate the arson attack, bring those responsible to justice and report back to the victim of that crime. If the person that has asked this question has any information that may help secure that justice, it's absolutely imperative that you share it with the police as soon as possible. I may suggest that you ask Greater Manchester Police for an update yourself, as this is clearly of significant interest to you. Thank you.
The next question has been submitted by Lynn Kovacs. As an Oldhamer, I'm super proud that a member of the LGBT community is now our council leader. It should send a clear message out to those elsewhere who think that we're all prejudiced in Oldham. We are definitely not. We believe in equality for all. Therefore, will the leader of Oldham Council please clarify whether a woman can have a penis? Also, will her council protect the rights of women to access exclusive safe places, including toilets and changing rooms for those that were born female, rather than have to share these spaces with individuals that are self-identified as a woman? I call on Councillor Chadderton to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. An interesting question, to say the least. To put simply, no, I don't believe that biological women can have a penis. I believe there is a clear difference between sex and gender, and that we shouldn't mix up the two. Women should be protected, as per the Equality Acts, on the basis of their sex. Trans women should also be protected on the basis of their gender identity, which society should support both and respect both. This is not a race to the bottom for two groups of already persecuted people. There is absolutely a way to debate and negotiate the rights of women and trans women in a respectful and tolerant way, but that tone has been sadly lacking in the debate around these issues recently. In reference to the first bit of your question, I need to be clear that I don't believe the people of Oldham are prejudiced. I believe them to be fair-minded and reasonable. However, I worry that you've asked this question to sow division in the LGBT community, as you have sought to do among other communities in the past. In fact, just a few weeks ago, the person that asked this question was a candidate in the local elections for the Conservative Party. They were witnessed delivering racist and misogynistic election material that sought to convince people of the author's overarching conspiracy theory that this town was in the grip of a shadowy Asian cartel. I note that now we have an LGBT leader of the council, the tone of these questions has moved away from divisions based on race to those based on identity. I hope that this is merely a coincidence and not the start of a pattern of behaviour aimed at continuing to divide people of this town. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The next question has been submitted by Gary Tarbuck. The lead up to the election, the businessman Frank Rothwell distributed a leaflet in Chadderton South promoting Arush Shah. Whilst many may consider this unbecoming behaviour of someone who has become Freeman of the Borough, will the council please confirm how much it has paid Mr Rothwell's various businesses in contracts and what the council's current business interests are with him? I call on Councillor Jabbar to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks to Mr. Torbak for his question. Mr. Rothwell is not paid for his role as Oldham Business Ambassador. He offers his time free of and supports and promotes local businesses free of charge. This should be applauded and just one of the reasons why Frank was awarded Freeman of the Borough for his fantastic contribution to the businesses and the communities. The council has no ongoing contract with Mr. Roswell's business and no business interest. However, as a local business and in keeping with our policy to spend money locally, we have used Manchester Cabins to provide us with storage containers, portable toilets and other supplies in line with our normal procurement processes. In total, over the last 6 years, this adds up to less than £14,000, with spend in year falling since 2015. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I just remind you, these are residents' questions. Like Mr. Tarbuck, if he's here, I'm sure you'd like to have heard the answer. I shall move on. The next question has been submitted by Denise Leach. A worrying petition online that Oldham Council is involved in Operation Hexagon and that this is a joint council and GMP operation that is targeting whistleblowers that have exposed the now proven cover-up of grooming and gang rape in our town children. Will the new leader of Oldham Council please confirm if OMBC are involved Operation Hexagon, and if so, as an open and honest transparent council, is this leader prepared to order the release of all paperwork involving Operation Hexagon? I call on Councillor Chatterton to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Operation Hexagon is a Greater Manchester Police operation which looked at the community impact of the historic CSE allegations being made online and elsewhere. Oldham Council supported this operation as it would any other GMP operation it is asked to support. In terms of accessing paperwork relating to the operation, that request would have to be put to Greater Manchester Police for their consideration. It is not for me to order the release of police files. I've also put right the part of the question that refers to the now proven cover-up of child sexual exploitation, as it isn't proven at all. The report states very clearly there was no cover-up of CSE by the council or the police. Quite the opposite. The report found that the council were working to tackle CSE, were aware of the complexity of the challenge we faced and working to raise awareness of the issue. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The next question has been submitted by Julie Haywood. Previous to becoming leader of Oldham Council, Amanda Chatterton held the portfolio for schools whilst Jim McMahon was leader of Oldham Council. Will she now confirm that during her role in charge of schools, that white working class girls were safe and there was no grooming in the school gates? I call on Councillor Chatterton to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. While I was Cabinet Member for Education and our Children's Services, there was no significant concerns raised with me about the safety of children at the school gates. However, as we have discussed extensively in this chamber over the last few weeks, the challenge of keeping children safe in Oldham and everywhere else in the country is one we face daily. It is an ongoing battle that our social workers fight day in, day out. I want to reassure people that we work closely with schools and colleges through our safeguarding partnerships to raise awareness of the risks to children and young people and to equip them and their parents with the knowledge they need to stay safe. The partnership has a dedicated training officer for children and young people who visit schools to deliver training on healthy relationships, online sexual harassment and consent. We also work with children and young people at primary and secondary schools and colleges to discuss sexualised behaviours, child sexual exploitation, child criminal exploitation and grooming. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The next question has been submitted by Warren Bates. At the last full council, leader Amanda Chatterton nominated Dr. Shan for deputy. The council went through the normal sham of voting him in. I choose the word sham, speaking as the next councillor, the reason being that the doctor's role had already been announced at a meeting held in Port, Pakistan the week previous. Will the leader remind fellow councillors that policy decisions about the town should not be mentioned elsewhere especially in another country, until our full council has debated them before a democratic decision is agreed. I call on Councillor Chadderton to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nominations for Mayor and for Deputy Mayor, and this year the same way as Leader and Deputy Leaders, are made within the political groups before then being formalised at full council. And while councillors do not formally take on the roles until the AGM of council, there are no rules about communicating it before that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The next question has been submitted by for leadership. With energy costs at all-time high, how is Oldham Council leading the way on green energy that is affordable? And what is the government giving the council to expand this? I call on Councillor Jabbar to respond.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Oldham Council knows that the cost of energy is a key concern for Oldham residents and businesses, especially at this time. The award-winning Warm Homes Oldham programme to insulate homes of low-income families is continuing. Additionally, the Oldham Green New Deal strategy was adopted in March 2022, which sets out Council's ambition to create a local energy market for Oldham to supply locally generated green energy to residents and businesses at affordable prices. An update on the Oldham's Green New Deal was presented to the Council's Policy Overview Scrutiny Committee in February 2022, which included completion of local area energy plan for Oldham Borough. This work is complicated but includes market engagement with providers interested in joining delivery partnership to build large-scale renewable energy generation across the borough. The Council is supported in this work by Greater Manchester Combined Authority Local Energy Market project, and the Government has indicated that it may be prepared to look at reforming the national energy market to allow local pricing which would support the Council's work. The energy market regulator Ofgem includes local pricing in its forward work plan. Finally, the Council is looking to develop a number of energy infrastructure projects, including the proposed Mine District Water Network for Oldham Town Centre, which, if successful, could supply the town centre businesses and residents with affordable green energy for many years to come. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Before we move on to the next question, Dr. Shan would like to make a point of personal explanation. I call on Dr. Shan.
I think, Mr. Bates, I think it's important that I respond to your question as a personal explanation. Please, you ask a question, please let me respond. Please, you ask for a question, I urge you, beg you, let me respond to your question, okay? So I'm proud of where I came from. It's a town called Mirpur, as you rightly said. My group appointed me, agreed to appoint me as a deputy mayor of this council. I went home on holidays, like all of us go, and people said, I've been appointed as a deputy mayor of Oldham Council. Please, let me finish, please, with all respect to you. I'm very respectfully, please, if we want to have a conversation, I'm very respectfully having conversation, okay? Like many, no, that's not a lie, please. Well, you will have to prove that this is a lie. You will have to prove that this is a lie. You will have to prove that this is a lie. I'm legally challenging you. You will have to prove that this is a lie. Okay, so I'm sorry if that's hurt someone, that in a town where I was born, people thought that I have been elected as a deputy mayor, and that's a good thing for Oldham, like many residents in this town who live, and they have done as much for Oldham as I have done and you have done. Thank you.
Next question.
The next question, the next question has been submitted by Geoffrey Smith. Dual carriageway leading from Manchester roundabout to Westwood Featherstone Road, North roundabout, on both sides of the dual carriageway. Why can't it be cleaned up? I do it myself, but I'm not allowed to. But I've been asking councillors for years. Thanks. I call on Councillor Stretton to respond.
Can I thank Mr Smith for his question? Oldham Way is mechanically swept on a weekly basis. Through the summer months, all verges are litter picked and cleared monthly, all parts of the grass, as part of the grass cutting schedule and maintenance programme. The most recent clearance of this area was today. If there is a section that Mr Smith thinks has been missed, then by all means email us and we'll make sure that it's cleared. Thank you.
The next question has been submitted by Amanda Chowdhury. Councillor Chatterton, in her new position as Leader of Council, agreed there had been previous failings and that it is now time to get things right. The CSE report found Oldham Council had been more concerned about covering up their failures rather than acknowledging they failed to take action. Is Councillor Chatterton prepared to take action to remove the council of these officers and councillors that we're responsible for these failures and cover up? I call on Councillor Chatterton to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is clear there was no cover-up of the issue of child exploitation in Oldham or the complexities in tackling it. And irrespective of how many times people say that, that doesn't make it true. There was absolutely no cover-up, and the report clearly finds that. It provides evidence of work carried out to communicate the risk of child exploitation to school children and their parents, and cites this as good practice for the time. However, as Ms Caldron identifies, it does rightly highlight poor responses that the Council sent to an adult victim of abuse where we were clearly not open and transparent in our past failings. In that case, we did not readily accept our past failings and potentially cause further distress to someone who we also had failed as a child. And I'm clear that this cannot happen again. I've asked a thorough review of this victim's contact with the Council as an adult so we can understand how that happened and make sure it doesn't happen again. The review will also look at staff conduct and whether disciplinary action is appropriate. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The next question has been submitted by Lord Christopher Baddeley. I would like to know the name of the person who supplied Shabir Ahmed, convicted of CSE in Rochdale, with a character reference. I have been informed that the person responsible is a current Labour councillor. Is this correct? I call on Councillor Chatterton to respond.
I've checked within the Council and we have no record of anybody giving a reference to Shabir Ahmed. However, I know there are allegations online, an allegation made in this chamber a couple of weeks ago and tonight, that Councillor Jabbar may have given a reference to this individual. So Councillor Jabbar would like to respond himself to this question.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know there are malicious and untrue allegations circulating online about me apparently providing a reference for disgraceful rapist Shabir Ahmed. It is alleged I've given him a reference for court appearance when he was accused of horrendous act of child abuse. These allegations are categorically untrue. I was never asked and absolutely never would give any such reference.
Please, ladies and gentlemen,
in
would you
fact,
like to listen?
I have
It
no
might be of
recollection
interest
of
to
ever
you.
being approached or given any reference to this individual. This man's crime are truly abhorrent, and nobody of right mind could support him in face of crimes that he was accused and subsequently convicted for in 2012. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The next question has been submitted by Carl Bardsley. In a statement from Andy Burnham on Friday, the 1st of July, he states, Operation Sherwood will investigate the historic cases identified in the review team to bring any perpetrators to justice. My question is what is being done about the victims that were not in the review, like the lady that was subjected to abuse in 1981. Sorry, I
Thank
call
you.
on Councillor Chadderton to
Right,
respond.
sorry, Madam Mayor, that's why I was confused. I hadn't been called. But thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the question. I can confirm that Operation Sherwood will investigate all historic cases of child exploitation from any time period. It will start with those in the review, but it will also pick up any others that are brought forward to the team. We will work with Greater Manchester Police to promote Operation Sherwood and encourage historic victims to come forward. We'll also make sure they are given the support they need as they bravely seek justice for their past abuse. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The next part of this section is questions to the Leader and Cabinet with a time limit of 30 minutes. I advance notice of questions. The Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democratic Group will ask his questions. I call on Councillor Gloucester.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to raise an issue tonight in relation to community policing in Oldham. As we are aware, each ward has a dedicated community beat officer, along with police community support officers, who are the direct point of contact with residents, some of whom have years of knowledge and experience in dealing with community issues, at the coalface, so to speak. I'm aware that the Oldham division in particular has staffing issues, and as a result, abstractions on a temporary basis of community police officers, as well as backfilling due to a lack of new police officers, is having a significant knock-on effect to community policing in the Oldham Borough. In this very chamber, the Chief Constable assured us that community policing was his priority, and Mayor Burnham has increased funding significantly to make this happen. Oldham, with its diverse community and levels of social injustice, is a particularly difficult division to police. So a reduction, however temporary, in community police staffing is unacceptable, and the return to the old ways of fire brigade style policing. Can I ask, therefore, that the concerns of this council in relation to the staffing and resourcing of community policing is raised with the divisional commander, Chief Superintendent Chris Bowen, and seek assurance that, as the Chief Constable promised, community policing will be strengthened and not depleted. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Gloucester for this question. Yes, of course I will raise it. I have quite regular meetings with Chris as lead for GMP in Oldham, and I will of course raise it. Staffing issues I don't think are anything new to GMP in Oldham, and you know, certainly as ward councillors, we felt this as quite a significant issue over the past couple of years. Chris came in, as you rightly say, and agreed to prioritise this, but the proof will be in the pudding, won't it? And I think I will raise it, and I'll ask for a response back as well. Thank you.
Councillor Gloucester, have you got another question?
I have, Madam Mayor, yeah. It's one of Councillor Sykes' favourite ones, but I'm going to ask it. Madam Mayor, the issues on safety on trams is a theme of Howard's during these question times. That's because it's vitally important that people can access public transport without fear of antisocial behaviour or intimidation. I was dismayed to read a recent report by Onward UK, in which a resident of our borough is quoted as saying, "You take your life in your hands for a £3.60 return." There are more instances of antisocial behaviour on the Rochdale to Oldham line than on any other part of the Greater Manchester network. No wonder our residents feel unsafe. Over the last few weeks we've seen announcements of new security cameras, and those would be very welcome, Madam Mayor. I do hope that all stations will be prioritised, and not just the one closest to Oldham Town Centre. But does the Leader agree with me that one of the most reassuring things we could do for residents now to deter crime and to show people that public transport is safe is to make sure that there are conductors on our trams? This is something that I and my Liberal Democrat colleagues have called for so many times that we've lost count. There has even been agreement across this chamber on the issue. In November 2018, this council voted unanimously in favour of a Liberal Democrat motion calling for tram conductors. Yet, we still haven't seen conductors on our tram services. This really is about getting the basics right. Will the Leader push for conductors as part of the council's efforts to combat crime on our public transport network? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I call on the leader to respond.
Thank you very much. And I do... Violence and crime on trams continues to be an issue, doesn't it? It was pre-pandemic, it dropped obviously during the pandemic, and I think has risen again post-pandemic. I'm not sure that there is one answer to this question, and I'm not sure conductors are the answer. They may be part of the answer. With regards to the CCTV, there are 51 new CCTV cameras that have gone up, Metrolink stops across the conurbation, or across that line, I should say, Chris. We also secured £500,000 in funding to keep women and girls safe on the tram network as well. And we have to see what these will come from. But I do think it is something that we should continue to monitor. If the CCTV doesn't help and the £500,000 funding doesn't help, then I think we should move towards a conductor-style system if there was nothing else that will tackle that problem. Thank you.
I now call the Conservative group to ask, the Conservative group will ask his questions. Councillor Sheldon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Residents of the borough deserve to reap the benefits of a well-earned holiday on a physical, mental and emotional level. I think we all agree that holidays are good for us. Yet over the past months, passengers at Manchester Airport have suffered a series of stressful misfortunes, from flights missed as a result of long queues at security, as well as last-minute holiday cancellations because of staff shortages. Will you just be quiet while I say my question? Going on holiday gives our residents the chance to step back from the responsibilities and obligations of everyday life, improving mental well-being and reducing stress levels. I think one or two of us could do with a holiday at this particular moment in time.
Councillor Sheldon.
As a key stakeholder,
carry on,
I'll carry on, yeah. As a stakeholder in Manchester Airport Group, I asked the leader, what are the council doing to ensure that all who enter the summer holidays, passengers, have a positive experience at the airport? And also, when will the dividends due to the council be... and the residents of Oldham recommence? Thank you.
I call on the leader to...
Thank Councillor Sheldon for his question. I do agree that, do you know what, for a lot of our families at the moment, they're struggling to heat their homes or put food on the table, let alone have a holiday. But for those families that can, and I do agree that families where possible should be able to get away. And some of the scenes at Manchester Airport are not appropriate, and particularly those who are looking forward to go away with their children, and they get there, and I saw the one where it was due to fly to Crete, and then they got to the gate, and then they were all sent home. Do you know, that kind of behaviour is not appropriate, be it from the airport or the airlines. And they take people's money, and they should honour that, or they should stop booking so many flights. As leader, obviously, we are part of Manchester Airport Group, and we invest in that as a council, as do the other 9 Greater Manchester authorities. As leader, I will write to the Chief Executive of MAG to understand what is going on and when the issues are going to be resolved at the airport. And what I will say is, though, I don't think that's everybody's experience at the airport, because I know people have gone away and been able to fly away and it's been fine, so it's not every day those are an issue, but I do think they need to work through to resolve that. And if the answer is you don't take money off people and you don't allow those people to book them flights, then you should do that. You have to be realistic about the staff that you've got. But I will be sending a letter as leader to Chief Executive of MAG. Thank you, Graham.
Second question, please.
Thank you, Councillor Chatterton, for that reply. As temperatures are set to soar over the next week, would the leader join me in urging the press and schools to note the problems that come along with the onset of summer, In particular, I would like to warn all residents and young people of the dangers of swimming or jumping in open water, as even in hot weather, large bodies of open water remain extremely cold and dangerous. Another big worry over the summer holidays are fires, which set by barbecues, campfires or deliberately are enormously destructive, devastating wildlife and the surrounding environment. I hope the leader will agree and endorse that by keeping these issues in mind, the young people of the borough can enjoy their summer break as well as the environment in which they choose to spend it. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. And while obviously some people in the room don't think this is a relevant question, actually it is.
Of course
Do you know, we've seen too many young people die in our reservoirs across Greater Manchester over the past couple of years. And you know, for everybody shouting, if that was my 15-year-old son that died in Ordenshaw Reservoir last year, I'd find it absolutely offensive, to be totally honest. And this is a really important question because it does get hot and temperatures are going to rise to over 30 degrees over the summer. And people look for a way to cool down and they're out with their friends. And, you know, they think it's exciting, but it's not exciting. It is dangerous, and they're really dangerous to do with that. I do agree as well with the moorland fires, and you'll know that better than me as a Saddleworth councillor. The absolute devastation it causes on moorlands in Saddleworth, but also on Crompton Moor as well, is huge. And it's not just about the devastation it causes, it's about the impact on our blue light services, because some of those in Saddleworth over recent years have taken days and nights to be able to put out, and what that does is move resources away from other areas to ensure they can put that down and it doesn't move on to residential areas. What I will ask the council comms team to do is to start putting things out over the next few days to ensure to alert people to the dangers of this. Thank you, Graham.
Thank you.
The leader of the Failsworth Independent Party will ask his question. Councillor Hoban.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I don't know if this is addressed to Councillor Chatterton or another Cabinet member. Recently, there was a report that 7 underperforming schools have been identified in need of intervention in Oldham. I'd like to know why they've got to this stage and what the council haven't been doing, as this looks like failing the children of this borough yet again. The government say they're investing in this area. I'd like to know what the council are doing to ensure other schools aren't going to fall into special measures. And on an additional subject to do with schools is the same question. In the same week that report came out, a head teacher was complaining that for almost a decade he's been on at the council for a leaking building and flooding. Children shouldn't have to work in that kind of environment. He said the council have been dodging the matter and dodging accountability. So when will somebody from this administration take responsibility and help this headmaster to provide good school for these children? Or are we going to have a word with the headmaster and say in the school holidays, perhaps say that the classrooms are empty retail spaces, put a sign outside saying it's Spindles too, and only then will the council spend some money?
I call on the leader to respond.
Can I thank Councillor Hoban for his question? On the first one, in terms of the 7 underperforming schools, I don't know what these schools are. I read that report and I've asked our lead for education to bring me back with a report about what those schools are, because it's unclear to me, are they local authority schools or are they academy schools? Do you know, a vast majority of our schools estate does not fall under us anymore, and we need to be clear about what are we doing as our local authority schools and what are we doing to try and hold some of our academies to account. But until I can see what those schools are, I haven't got a more comprehensive question to that answer, Brian. But if you would like at some point over the next month or so, I can furnish you with more information about what we are doing to support and improve those schools. That's absolutely fine. In relation to the leaking school, obviously this is Newman College on Broadway that you speak about. You are right, Brian, the conditions there are absolutely unacceptable and it has been going on for too long. We know the terrible conditions the staff and the pupils have had to endure through no fault of their own for far too long. We continue to do everything in our power to help resolve the situation. Obviously, that is an academy school, it's a Catholic school, so you've got the diocese as well, and it's also a PFI building, which is where the biggest issue is in relation to Newman. We are not the lead contractor in that. We've been working to school, try and hold them to account to get the work done. I do hope, though, that we will be able to find some kind of solution to that problem soon, because that cannot go on any longer, because at some point it does call into question the feasibility of that school long term, and it's been going on for far too long. I do agree. Thank you.
I call on Councillor McLaren to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors throughout the borough are receiving complaints about residential properties that have been left empty for extended periods. These properties are privately owned. They become a blight on the neighbourhood and they can take up a large amount of elected member and officer time which could be put to better use. Could the relevant Cabinet member please tell us what powers the Council have to bring such properties back into use? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I call on Councillor Chatterton to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Council has limited powers with regards to tackling privately owned long-term empty property within the borough. In order for the Council's enforcement team to take action, properties have to be causing a direct nuisance to prescribed members of the public. The most common type of enforcement is serving a statutory notice for action in regards to open access, defective guttering or damp to neighbouring properties, and pest and waste issues. In most cases, the results in the owner taking steps to make the property safe, but rarely resolves the long-term vacant issue and put an end to the recurring complaints. Other powers available to a local authority, each with its own barriers and challenges, and used as a last resort, are enforced sale procedure. The Council is in the final stages of successfully completing its first ESP with a view to doing more in the coming months, and that would make a real difference, Madam Mayor, if we can get into that space to be able to do that. Compulsory purchase orders. This was the main tool used in the housing market renewal over a decade ago and mostly used to regenerate streets and rows of housing. Empty dwelling management orders. We're not currently used in Oldham, but officers are reviewing the process to determine how it can be more effectively used within the town. The Council is also working with Homes England within scope of its Affordable Homes programme to launch a refreshed empty home scheme using the learning from the empty homes pilot that took place between 2019 and 2021. And we're looking to launch the new empty home scheme later this year. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Birch to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Children and young people are the future of our borough, but over many years we have seen youth services cut and facilities close. Young people are also having to face increased challenges and pressures that are brought on about by a variety of issues, including the pandemic, exams, the cost of living and peer pressure. Could the Cabinet Member for Children and Young People please tell us what the youth service are doing to support our young people? Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Moores to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Birch, for the question. I'm pleased to say that we are actively investing in our young people. We are working with our partners to ensure that services, where possible, are delivered in the districts. And we have a lot to be proud of. Our Youth Council, the Barriers Breakers Scheme, our Children in Care Council, our detached team and Madlow. They all provide a fantastic service. And shortly we will be introducing district youth workers. So I'm pleased to, I'm sure that elected members will hear more about that in the near future. Thank you.
I call on Councillor Shuttleworth to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's pleasing to know that Oldham residents have been coming forward, offering to host individuals and families fleeing the atrocities that are taking place in Ukraine. Sadly, many will have arrived in this country with few personal belongings, and many of them will also have a limited knowledge of our culture and language. Could the relevant Cabinet Member comment on the following? Advise to how many refugees from Ukraine are being provided with accommodation in the borough? What systems the council have in place to ensure the placement is safe and secure? And what support hosts and guests receive in order to ensure that the placement is a successful one? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I call on Councillor Stratton to respond.
A total of 53 Ukrainian refugees have been provided with accommodation through the Homes for Ukraine scheme. When the Council receives notification of a visa application being approved by the Home Office, DBS checks are undertaken for all sponsors in a household aged 16 years and over. Checks are also made with social care and Greater Manchester Police. In addition, inspections of all sponsor properties are undertaken by environmental health colleagues in advance of the Ukrainian refugees' eventual arrival. Once the refugees have arrived, social care colleagues undertake a welfare visit to the sponsor household to meet with the guest. In the event that the DBS or property inspection is failed, the Council will look to rematch any Ukrainian refugees to another household. Regular dialogue takes place with sponsors and guests, and the Council has a dedicated officer to support the Homes for Ukraine scheme. Support is provided by a range of partners, including education, Get Oldham Working, Access Oldham, housing, libraries, and other providers to support their integration. Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Alandami to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Greater Manchester's police have been in special measures since December 2020. Since the creation of the Greater Manchester Mayoralty, the political responsibility for the policing has rested with Mayor Andy Burnham. And to summarise, there's a list of failures for the Greater Manchester Police in the question. Political accountability has been lacking throughout the period of GMP being in special measures. Would the Leader of the Council write to Mayor Burnham asking him to come to Oldham to field questions from councillors, as he has done elsewhere in Greater Manchester, on the ongoing situation affecting Greater Manchester Police?
Thank you. I call on Councillor Chadderton to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Al-Hamdani for his approach. I'm sure all of us can agree that the failings of Greater Manchester Police over the past few years is wholly unacceptable. Do you know, it should shame the police, really, that they were the first police force in the country to go into special measures. Unfortunately, a number of other police forces have followed suit, none more so than the Metropolitan Police in London, but that doesn't justify the failings of Greater Manchester Police. In terms of, will the Mayor come here to speak to us about, the things that have happened with them? So, in November last year, Oldham held the first in a series of Greater Manchester meetings where the Chief Constable at the time and Andy Burnham agreed to go round all the 10 authorities, and we were the first, and they came to the chamber to answer questions and about their plan to take them out of special measures. And this was publicised, but the reality is there was more councillors from outside of Oldham that attended that event than there was councillors in Oldham. Now, I'm quite happy to go back to Andy Burnham and to Stephen Watson to ask for that again. But if we're going to ask for that, and that's what people want, which I think is a good idea, and we should ask for that, people have to turn up to listen to that, don't they, and to ask those questions. Yeah, absolutely, I'll do that, sir. Thank you.
Is there a Conservative question? Councillor Quigg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is quite straightforward. I was promised a reply from Gerard. I was promised a reply from Mr Bowen in regards to the questions that I raised at the meeting on the 27th of June. And my colleagues here asked 2 questions as well. I've yet to receive a reply to both questions. One, in regards to whether or not the parents have been informed by the schools. The second one was whether shisha bars and the people involved in those shisha bars had been prosecuted or not. And of course, the third and final question that was raised by myself and Councillor Hoban and others was, when will we get a public inquiry? When? It's not good enough asking us, we're asking you. What are you scared of, Amanda? What are you scared of?
Councillor Chadderton to respond.
First off, I'm not scared of anything. Absolutely not scared of anything, Councillor Quigg. What I would say, Councillor Quigg, is the reality is, you're a Conservative Party councillor. It's the Conservative Party that run this country. I will not be calling for a public inquiry. But if you want to write to your own government to ask for inquiry, then be my guest, Councillor Quigg. Okay, you go ahead and ask your own politicians in Westminster for the public inquiry and see what their response is. Now, in response to the other questions that you've put forward, you will get a response in due course. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. A call on Councillor Alias to ask a question. Councillor Alias. Councillor Alias.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We'd all agree that Don't Trash Oldham has been an overwhelming success, and I know it made a huge difference in my own ward in Medlock Vale. However, I did receive some complaints that not all the alleyways have been cleared. Can the Cabinet member provide an explanation and let me know if these will be done in the future? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
A call on Councillor Chadderton to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I thank Councillor Alias for his question? As you know, we are passionate about ensuring that Tommyfield Market, indoor and outdoor traders have a thriving future, and I actually met some of them this past weekend to talk about our plans going forward. Oh, sorry.
Councillor Stratton. Councillor Stratton, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'll get the response to Councillor Alias. I do apologise that.
A call on Councillor S. Bashford to ask a question.
Sorry. Madam Mayor, I think you call me. I have actually got a question from Councillor Alias, but that question should have been directed to Councillor Stratton. I do apologise. That is where the confusion came.
So, as far as I've been made aware, all of the alleys within the Medlock Vale ward have received a clearance as part of Don't Trash Oldham that was undertaken in December. It has been noted, however, that despite this clearance, residents in some areas over the last 6 months are continuing to dump waste inappropriately. And within this in mind, we continue to issue fixed penalties. I'm trying to answer a question that's been put to me by a member of this council. Well, if you listen to the answer, you could then make a judgment as whether or not I've answered it truthfully. Okay, so it has been noted, however, that despite this clearance, residents in some areas over the last 6 months are continuing to dump waste inappropriately. And with this in mind, we continue to issue fixed penalty notices, and where they remain unpaid, we will prosecute. If a list of alleys that have been perceived to have been missed can be provided to me, I will endeavour to ascertain from officers the current situation, and if for any reason they've been genuinely missed, I will ensure that the street cleansing team pay them a visit.
A call on Councillor S. Bashford to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Further to the publishing of the CSE report, there was a debate in Parliament. A debate, I might add, that was quite civilised, unlike in here. Anyway, in that debate, the no former...
Ladies and gentlemen, you are not at a football match.
No.
Please be quiet.
Okay, so at the adjournment debates that followed that report, Rachel McLean, who is now the former Conservative Government Parliament Under Secretary of State, thanked our local MPs for bringing this to Parliament. And she actually said, thanks for selling their... They said thanks for setting out their strong commitment for securing justice to these victims, which is what we all want to see. And the Minister further said that they will have the full support of this Conservative members and the full force of the Home Office and the Home Secretary and every single Home Office Minister. This is a matter of public record in Hanson. Rachel McLean, again the former Conservative Parliament Under Secretary of State, also stated that I can say from my position as a Home Office Minister that to call into question the integrity of the law enforcement professionals who dedicate their lives and careers to investigating these incredibly disgusting and abhorrent crimes is outrageous. And it is completely wrong. And anyone who thinks there is any question about their professionalism needs to take a long, good, hard look at themselves. My question is this: in the light of this strong and unequivocally messages of support from a former but still a senior member of this Conservative government in Parliament, has this council any other comments, positive or negative, about what the government have said?
I call on Councillor Chadderton to respond.
Madam Mayor, sorry. Or is the Conservative government involved in this alleged elaborate cover-up?
So, thank you, Madam Mayor, and can I thank Councillor Bashforth for his question?
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, point of order. Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Is it an actual point of order?
It is a point of order.
Which
it's for the
one
Mayor
is
to determine, Amanda, so forgive me.
Can you state your point of order, please?
Madam Mayor, we've just been accused, the Conservative Party, of being involved in an elaborate cover-up. Will they remember withdraw that remark?
Okay, well that wasn't a point of order, if we're being honest, Madam Mayor, was it? Councillor Bashforth asked a question.
Excuse me, you're not the Mayor. That's the Mayor.
Okay, so firstly...
It's not a point of order. It is not a point of order. Carry on, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for that clarification. So I welcome the debate in Parliament and the commitment of our members of Parliament to publicly address the issues and raise it for debate with government ministers. Rachel McLean's support for the Working Independent Review Team and other review teams was unequivocal and much welcome. It's clear that government have absolute confidence in the purpose and objectives of their work, just as we do. We're in active conversation with the Department of Education and the Home Office about the review findings and our response to it, both to see how they can help us drive improvements to services and how they can help us share learning from our review across the sector. The work of the Department for Education and the Home Office is ongoing. I know they are supportive of the work we are doing seeking to help us. As I said previously, Madam Mayor, should anybody else wish to write to the Home Office, the Department for Education or for Ofsted regarding the review, then they are more than welcome to do so. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. That's the end of members' questions. Any unanswered, unasked questions, the members will be written to. We're now moving on to the next section on the agenda. It's 8C and it's questions on Cabinet minutes. The next part of this section is questions on Cabinet minutes. I call on Councillor Chadderton to move and Councillor Jabbar to second that Council notes the minutes of the Cabinet are circulated and the 28th of February minutes recirculated.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Moved. Do any members who are not Cabinet members wish to ask a question on the Cabinet minutes? I've advance notice for questions. Councillor Hamlet.
Madam Mayor, point of order. Madam Mayor, I don't know whether this is a point of order, but I do take offence, and I think it's absolutely disgraceful that we should be subjected to accusations of being paedophiles. I have just been referred to as a paedophile in this chamber. Now, that is absolutely unacceptable. And I want that person to either withdraw that statement, or I would like to take some legal advice from the legal people, please.
To the public, please stop using language of that nature. We don't know which one it was. Or we'll adjourn the meeting.
Councillor Bashford, I'm sorry you've been subjected to such abuse by members of the public. Can I please ask you to show a bit of decorum, because this is totally unacceptable behaviour. I call on Councillor Boundary to respond.
Madam Mayor, I didn't actually ask my question.
Sorry, Councillor Almond, carry on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just a slight point, as a member of the Oldham Pride Committee, thank you to Elaine for her kind words towards Oldham Pride, and thank you for the support. My question is in relation to Cabinet Minutes 28 for the 2nd, 2022, page 17, a request to approve a contract modification and extension to the current provider for asymptomatic community outreach COVID-19 testing. Can the Cabinet Member for Health and Social Care tell me when did community testing end, and will the Council be able to reclaim any costings back from the Government at a later date? And also, given that COVID-19 numbers are on the increase, would any updates or reports be given to the Council in the future like they were in 21? Thank you.
You can respond now, Councillor Brownridge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Free community testing ended on the 1st of April 2022. The Council could claim back the cost of those tests up until that date. From that date, we cannot claim any money back. The Government does no longer provide us with access to tests for general use, and the cost of those tests can't be reclaimed. High levels of vaccination in the population mean that the national and local strategy for COVID is now very different from in the early stages of the pandemic. And COVID-related deaths and admissions to intensive care are now substantially lower than in 2020 and 2021. With changes to national testing and contact tracing policies, we now have very little data about cases within Oldham, which would enable us to provide regular updates in the way we would have done in the past. But obviously, if the national or local situation changes, we'll update the Council. Thank you.
I call on Councillor Lancaster to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question concerns items 9 and 14 of the Cabinet Minutes of Monday the 28th of February, the former WH Shaw's office and clock tower building in Diggle. Going forward, residents of the village and Saddleworth and the wider borough at large need to know that this building will not be allowed to deteriorate to a state of disrepair, and the local community ought to have a role in establishing its future use for the long term. With that in mind, can the administration please confirm that this council is and will continue to support the good maintenance of this important heritage asset, and can the administration detail its efforts, past and intended, to establishing a long-term use for this building and the community's involvement in this process? Thank you very much.
I call on Councillor Chatterton to respond.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Lancaster, for your question. While the long-term use for the building is still to be identified, I do agree that we should work towards that. That is a beautiful building and a beautiful community asset, and it'd be a shame for it to go into rack and ruin, and I'm determined not to allow that to happen. There have been a number of surveys, and a schedule of priority works is currently being developed with the aim of addressing some of the structural issues that have been identified and also protecting the fabric of the building from future deterioration. I will ask officers to share the priority work with local ward members so they are kept abreast with any developments. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I call on Councillor Kenyon to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is with reference to the Cabinet on the 17th of February at 4 p.m. Item 5, Creating a Better Place update. Creating a Better Place is heralded by this administration to be a flagship multi-million-pound programme of regeneration which reimagines homes, businesses, community assets and schools throughout the borough. Will Council agree to an ambitious local spending target for creating a better place which matches its ambition for regeneration, say one of 80%?
I call on Councillor Chatterton to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I thank Councillor Kenyon for his question? I do agree largely with the premise of the question, but there are some certain restrictions that allow us to achieve this, or certainly restrictions in terms of what we've got to work through. So any council commitment must be mindful of certain restrictions under the Public Contracts Regulations and in particular Section 17 of the Local Government Act. However, just to give a couple of examples of the work that we have done to move forward on this agenda and try and achieve those aims, we incorporate the social value portal in all our procurements greater than £100,000, which is then weighed at a minimum of 10%. We can and typically do apply multipliers to local spend measures. All 28 contractors on our new North West Contractor Framework are contractually committed to deliver a minimum of 12% social value. Local supply chain engagement events are held by contractors awarded our construction contracts. This includes well-attended local pure partnerships to introduce local businesses to the contractors on the North West Contractor Framework, and FAQs written and shared on our internet to assist local businesses understand the procurement process are also published. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Woodvine, did you raise your hand?
Yes, please,
Yeah.
Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hope you'll allow me to be a little bit cheeky and ask two questions, but the second one is only very short. On item 6 from the February Cabinet meeting, I am pleased to see some limited actions being taken on the preservation of two historic buildings in the borough, the Prudential and the Loom Works. However, much more is needed regarding heritage matters, as the centre of Oldham in its entirety has been branded at risk by Heritage England, which is quite shocking considering it is a conservation area. Fox Denton Hall, for example, is in a bad state of repair, which is worsening due to water damage, and the condition of many of our churches, which I appreciate are not under council control, are also deteriorating, including St Chad's, the mother church of Saddleworth. What is the council going to do about this sorry situation when it comes to our borough's heritage sites and assets, and when will the council learn its lesson that buildings do not maintain themselves? But we used to have a so-called heritage champion who specialised in this area. So will the leader in Cabinet consider appointing one from amongst the elected members? And also, Madam Mayor, simply on item 10, when will the street bins be here? Because we've been waiting many months and we were told that Easter was the due date, but it is disappointing to have to continually break bad news to the people in my ward and wider Saddleworth. Thank you.
Amanda, do you want to respond?
I would love to, Madam Mayor. Thank you. So I absolutely agree with the premise of the question. Oldham has some absolutely unbelievable buildings, and particularly some of the old buildings in the town centre. I was out with our regeneration team and some of the contractors only last week to look at some of these buildings. Obviously, we've been successful in tendering quite a lot of money for the redevelopment of the town centre and opening up some of our old buildings, such as the old public library, which will be complete in the next 2 years. There is more work to be done though. The Prudential building is privately owned, but we are looking at what can be done about that, and we are speaking to the owners of that, and the ambition is to open up that section, certainly on Union Street, and bring some of those old buildings back to life. As I understand it, the link at Fox Denton has been fixed and there is a plan for Fox Denton. I do not know the timescales for the bins. Do you? No. So I don't know the timescales for the bins. I do apologise about that. Councillor Woodvine, you are right. It's taken an awful long time to get some bins, but I understand the issue is around the supply chain issue and it's kept on getting delayed. But I will ask for an update that from the relevant officer and come back to you. Thank you.
Is there any further questions from other councillors? We move on to item 9 on the agenda. It is the notice of administration business, and I call on Councillor Taylor to move and Councillor Goodwin to second the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hard work should pay for everyone, no matter who you are or what job you do. However, in recent years, the world of work has seen a fundamental shift from well-paid secure jobs to insecure employment models, which are mainly categorised by low pay, exploitative contracts and bogus self-employment. The result of which is a country with growing inequality and in-work poverty. Millions of families are sliding into poverty despite being in work, which is why this Labour motion calls for a better settlement for working people. The levels of insecure employment in the UK are worryingly high. The experience of being trapped in a low-paid job with no guaranteed hours, wages or security of employment is all too familiar for many of our residents. Those in insecure work often don't know what hours they will work, causing chaos with arrangements like childcare and preventing them from planning their finances day to day, let alone week to week. 3.6 million people were in insecure work prior to the coronavirus outbreak, leaving them exposed to massive drops in income or unsafe working conditions when the pandemic hit. Yet these workers sacrificed everything during the COVID crisis to protect ordinary people and their families, while those on the front line risked their lives by simply going to work. It is clear that working people need a wage that can actually feed their family and keep a roof over their head, one that makes profitable companies pay their fair share instead of letting the public pick up the tab. The Prime Minister keeps talking about levelling up, so let's see it for the low paid, because there is still a substantial gap between the government's 2022 national living wage rate and the rising cost of living. This year, the Living Wage Foundation will bring forward their wage rate announcement from November to September to enable employers to implement it sooner and to provide workers with security during this cost of living crisis. But the government must play its part too. They set the pay for 6 million workers, so let's start by giving those key workers the pay rise they earned. And this isn't just about doing the right thing for workers. High streets and business won't recover if people have no money. The risk of a deep recession will only be made worse by pay restraint, which will reduce spending at a time when consumer confidence is already at its lowest level since 1974. Crucially, we also need to protect workers against insidious practices like fire and rehire, which drag down workers' terms and conditions and can be used as an effective way of avoiding redundancy payments. It is clear that some employers use the pandemic as a pretext to diminish workers' terms and conditions. Yet, unsurprisingly, this government chose to block a private member's bill which would have enshrined good employment practice in statute and protected those workers affected by it. The government's plans for a new statutory code of practice will not be sufficient to protect workers from unfair treatment. So despite all of the protestations by government ministers, it would appear this government is happy for people to feel insecure in the workplace. 5 years ago, the government pledged to make work in the UK fairer, following the rise in gig economy jobs and the rise of zero-hour contracts. The Taylor report was a golden opportunity to put in place measures to ensure that decent work became widespread, while bad practices like zero-hour contracts were left in the past. These contracts are often promoted as giving greater flexibility in the workplace, but in reality, many employers use them to exploit their workforce. That is why we need to bring an end to zero-hour contracts and bogus self-employment, which doesn't offer any holiday or sick pay. We need an economy that works for everyone. We need genuine action that addresses the employment loopholes that unscrupulous employers use to exploit vulnerable workers. We need well-paid jobs that offer long-term security, that give people the chance not just to get by, but to succeed and prosper. More now than ever, we need to reshape the world of work. instead of an over-reliance on insecure work, which is bad for workers and bad for the economy. We need stronger employment rights. We need to stop employers misleading workers about their employment status. And we need to give workers the opportunity for true flexibility. Please support this motion.
Councillor Goodwin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm rising to second this motion. And as the motion states, and Councillor Taylor pointed out, millions of workers are in insecure employment, 0 hours contracts, bogus self-employment, and there are unscrupulous employers willing to fire and rehire on worse paying conditions. P&O being a recent example, to which the Prime Minister condemned such practice but refused to outlaw it. The phrase, all talk, no action, springs to mind. I was once told how workers were awarded work in the shipyards in the 1950s. The workers would attend the shipyards and the bosses would hand out brass tallies to the workers they chose. A brass tally meant you could feed your family that day. And when the bosses were bored, for their entertainment, they would throw the brass tallies in the air and watch as the men fought for those tallies, because that meant they could feed their family for that day. That was 70 years ago, and yet today, here we are, with 0 hour contracts and bogus self-employment, where workers are given work on the whim of their bosses or denied work if they fall out of favour with the bosses. This insecure employment prevents workers getting a mortgage, getting reasonable credit, forcing them into the hands of loan sharks. I don't even think you can get a mobile phone contract on a 0 hours contract. But now is the time to end this practice of fire and rehire, 0 hours contracts and bogus self-employment. Workers in this country are decent people doing decent jobs and they deserve decent pay and security. Please support this motion.
I'm aware of an amendment and I call on Councillor Quigg to move and Councillor Arnott to second the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we can all agree probably that a decent day's pay for a decent day's work is a valid point, and I think we can absolutely agree on that. But the motion sort of tries to divide people between key workers and who aren't key workers, and I think that that's something we shouldn't be doing, because everyone who worked throughout the pandemic, whether you're in an office job, whether you're driving a lorry, wagon, shelf stacker, you're all key to keeping the country going when it got shut down. So I think it's important you don't cut them people out, because these people are workers still, whether they be in the public sector or the private sector. And I think that that's important to remember. But there is a stench of hypocrisy when this council, and it's, as it says in the amendment, states in its own investment activity brochure in 2013, the average wage rate in Oldham is 16% lower than the UK average, representing a significant cost saving for business. Well, there you go. Dixie economics at its best. Come to Oldham because it's cheaper than the rest. How can you stand here and say what a decent wage pay when the Oldham Council's advertising that it's cheaper to come to Oldham because the wages are lower? It beggars belief. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And in regards to fire and rehire, Councillor Goodwin, you're quite right. These people who do that are despicable, because people do deserve to have a contract of some sort and know where they stand because of pay, etc. But this motion doesn't exactly nail these contractors down. In fact, that's why I've put the amendment down, because the amendment says, and I change it to, it says you discourage them. Well, just rule them out. Don't sign the contract with these people if they do that. Just don't sign it. Just say, no, we're not signing with you because you encourage fire and rehire. I mean, it's extraordinary that the Labour Council is now deciding that a Labour motion should encourage people. Just tell them no. It's as simple as that. It really is. And as the amendment goes on, to cut the long story short, I'd love to know where we are in terms of the TUC campaign that you mentioned, in terms of Oldham Council and New Deal for Working People. Because I think this council needs to set its standards as well and make sure it's meeting those standards, because rather than us supporting it, let's find out what we're doing ourselves in this council, whether or not we're meeting that criteria. Because by the sounds of it, we've still got a problem in some sectors. And I think that that needs addressing before we start telling others what to do. But equally, the elephant in the room, as I said about the 16% pay, is probably because Oldham has suffered from the brain drain of Manchester and other places, but also the influx of cheap foreign labour from outside, in particular European Union. People who struggle for jobs, you talk about the race to the bottom, these people have met the finish line years ago. And it's why they voted for, in 2016, to leave the European Union, because they wanted to take back control of the borders so they could then control who we had who coming in and how. And that's why this government is bringing in strong measures to control immigration and migration itself. Completely nothing about that in this motion. Nothing. And the Bank of England found, particularly in areas like Oldham, where there's regional discrepancies, that a 10% increase in proportion of foreign-born workers in lower-paid service jobs was associated with a 2% fall in the average pay for those jobs when focusing on regions, in particular places like Oldham. We heard nothing about that in this motion, nothing. So, I think it's important that we all agree that people should get secure work. But equally, I think we have to look at the fact that this council...
Move extension. Moving extension.
Is it moved, Madam Mayor? Yes or no? Thank you. Madam Mayor, to conclude, I think it's important that we all agree that fair pay for fair day's work. But this motion isn't going to deliver that. And I hope that people can support the amendment tonight that actually does look to tighten some of the things that are in this motion and some of the things that actually do need addressing. Because otherwise, we're just talking lip service. Jam today, jam tomorrow, whenever you want it, but it doesn't actually solve the problem of low pay. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Arnott. Councillor Arnott, second.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I stand to second the amendment and support all that Councillor Quigg has said. I will endeavour not to be an embarrassment. Madam Mayor, this motion is disappointing in many ways. There is much that the Labour administration could have spoken on in the primary motion before we break for recess. The continued fallout from the CSE review or recent unrest in the Coldhurst area, they could have used the opportunity to highlight the good work that the council will undertake over the school holidays with activities in parks across the borough and reading clubs, etc.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Or...
point of order, I'm sorry, but Councillor Arnott isn't speaking to the motion.
You're speaking to the amendment.
Speaking to me the
amendment, sorry.
Can't even get it right.
Can I carry on? Thank you. Or, ideally, this could have been a little more balanced, and because it is an important matter, and it could have some real proposals for concrete solutions. But what we have is a marshmallow of extracts and statistics lifted from various reports, littered with buzzwords and unsubstantiated conclusion. Many of the statistics quoted are used in the same way that a drunken man uses a lamppost, for support rather than illumination. The opening line of the motion itself portrays the country in the middle of a pandemic where vital services are kept running entirely by workers in insecure jobs with no protection rights. Simply not true. The motion continues that 1 in 9 workers were insecure, meaning that 8 in 9, nearly 90%, were not. If you ask a statistician what the answer is, the reply you will get is, what would you like the answer to be? And it goes on. But nowhere in the motion does it recognise that the national living wage has increased to £9.50 from the 1st of April, equating to over £1,000 a year for a full-time worker. Increases in personal tax-free allowance and a £6 billion tax cut have lifted 2.2 million people out of paying any personal tax at all. And according to the Office of National Statistics, the government provided close to £97 billion in furlough support and grants to the self-employed. If we're going to have it, let's have it across the board. In its resolution, the theme continues. The motion proposes that all key workers get a pay rise at least the equivalent rate of inflation. Really? Every police officer, fireman, nurse, doctor, care worker, train driver, paramedic, teacher, HGV driver, refuse collector, etc., etc., etc. in the country gets 10%. Good luck with that one. How will it be funded? In its further resolutions, the motion fails to propose real-term solutions, but proposes to encourage that the Council itself promotes, supports, or encourages measures in its dealings with its own staff and contractors. The motion is correct that the Council should look to itself when an internal survey in December revealed that only 50% of staff would recommend that working for Oldham Council is a great place to work, a sharp drop from the 63% in 2016, and that 40% of staff do not think that their pay reflects their level of responsibility. Finally, I have not had the chance to welcome Councillor Taylor in her new role. I have noted, however, that a motion has been widely publicised on the OMBC I Love Oldham Facebook page. Would the Chief Executive be so kind as to write to the leaders of the opposition groups outlining the process and procedure for them to have their opposition motions promoted by the Council in the same way? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Move to the vote, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor.
Right, we're just going straight to the vote now. With no time for debate, unfortunately. So, does Councillor Taylor... Yeah, does Councillor Taylor wish to reply? No.
There's going to be a vote on the closure motion.
Oh, vote on it. No.
Councillor Taylor does wish to use her right of reply, Madam Mayor.
It's been moved and seconded. We go to the vote. That now has to be put to the vote to see if it's agreed. Is that agreed?
Yes, agreed.
Right, now it's a vote on the amendment.
Yes, right. We'll go for Councillor Taylor and Quicken, but we've got to reply.
Honestly. The amendment? Yes. So I just say to people, we're voting on the amendment.
Right, we're voting on the amendment now. Sorry.
In terms of Councillor Taylor and Quicken, to reply before it goes to the...
Yeah. Sorry about that, folks. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Right of reply, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So I mean, I guess there's quite a few points that were raised there. I think the first thing is that, you know, to be critical about the motion that we've submitted, I find quite strange when the Conservative group hasn't submitted a motion at all. It was quite within your rights to do that, and you chose not to. So that does seem a little bit disingenuous, I have to say. I mean, in terms of the amendment, it makes reference to a number of things that wasn't mentioned in the speech. But first of all, you make reference to falling unemployment levels, which does nothing to address the problems in relation to the quality of jobs that are being created, which is essentially what this motion is about. Neither does it detract from the fact that well-rewarded, secure jobs are being replaced with low-paid, insecure work, and they are still on the increase. Now, we can get into semantics about the numbers, but we're talking about millions of people, and if you don't think that's a large number, if you don't think that is a significant amount of people who don't qualify for basic things like holiday pay and sick pay, then I find that quite astonishing, to be honest. And, you know, I would have to question if you are the party for working people, if that is your view. In towns like Oldham, where wages are already lower than the national average, unemployment is obviously higher and social mobility is lower. So as a Labour administration, we certainly don't encourage low pay. And I think to make reference to a document that's 10 years old, well, obviously times have moved on, things have moved on, and I think this motion is testament to that. I certainly wasn't on the council 10 years ago. But despite all the cutbacks, you know, that we have had to suffer, we have prioritised becoming an accredited living wage council, and last year we extended that to care workers in care homes as well. And so where it is in our gift, we have worked to make things better. You talk about the language being loose, but in reality, you know, not all of this is within our gift. So we have done some work around our procurement processes to make sure that they're better, and we do look for employers that have good employment track records. But at the end of the day, if they take a contract from the council and then decide to go through a fire and rehire process, there is limitations that we have. Unfortunately, had the Conservative government not had a 3-line whip to vote against Barry Gardner's private members bill, that wouldn't have been the case, would it? But here we are now, dealing with the reality of the situation. And I think, you know, the other points around the EU, I mean, well, the Labour Party's position is obviously clear on that. But as part of the decision-making process, when people made the decision whether they wanted to remain or whether they wanted to leave, the Conservative government made promises that they now need to deliver on. And they clearly said that they wanted to make Britain the best place in the world to work. So, you know, I would like to think that even though you think some of the language is loose in this, that the Conservative group would still support this motion. And I think the other point that I'd probably need to touch on is you talked about the Chancellor's spring statement and the increase in tax-free personal allowances. Well, I think it's only fair to point out that the small print, well, of course it's not lies because it's in print. So the small print in that same statement confirms that pay packets are expected to fall in value by £11 a week this year. And in the meantime, bankers' bonuses have been restored and energy companies are making billions in profit. So, you know, you might think that a 10% pay increase is not reasonable, but at the end of the day, people are facing real-term pay cuts to their standard of living. And people who are on low wages, people in towns like Oldham, who can't afford that. And clearly that is not an issue for you. Maybe we need to be creative and look at how we can deal with some of these things, but by simply kind of cutting it off and saying good luck with that, I find, to be honest, I find offensive. So, it's interesting. It's interesting that we're talking about workers' rights.
You're out of time.
It's interesting that we're speaking about workers' rights, something that is fundamentally important to almost every resident in this borough, yet people in the gallery and some people in the chamber seem to think it's not worth discussing. So, you know, I agree that, you know, there is a difference of opinion around some of this. But we are, as I say, we are doing everything within our gift. We are encouraging local businesses to support the Good Employment Charter. And, well, obviously I'm not going to sit down while I'm speaking. And we are obviously working to support the TUC campaign for a new deal for working people.
Councillors, I did advise you that there's a traffic light system. Please, can you be aware of it? Thank you. I call on Councillor Quigg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Quigg.
Well, obviously you don't want to talk about the European Union because it's obviously not a settled issue in the Labour Party, is it? You know, you don't want us to ask the members of Parliament what their position is because we might find out it's not what they're telling the people of this town, given you spent 4 years trying to stop us from leaving. But there you go, that's how democracy works. If you don't like it, we'll ask you again and again and again until you get the right answer. Seem to hear that a lot in Oldham. In regards to Councillor talks about looking backwards, well, we just had Councillor Goodwin talk about the 1950s. I mean, I think we have moved on probably about 6 decades by that point, but, you know, never mind. In regards to what you said, though, I do agree that we do need to talk about pay, and that's why we are talking about it. But you're talking about one sector of the economy. You don't give a tinker's cuss about the private sector. You've not talked anything about them. It's all about people who work in the council. What about everyone outside of the council? Well, everyone outside who works self-employed, you know, it's about financial responsibility, and the leader of your own party at Westminster seems to be very keen on financial responsibility all of a sudden, after supporting Jeremy Corbyn for God knows how long, talking about spending money here, there and everywhere, but never mind, we'll gloss over that. Keir says it's all right. But I do encourage people to support the amendment because I think it's important that we do have some sort of realisation that where we can increase pay, we should increase pay. But there's many employers out there who are still struggling from the after effects of the pandemic, many of them who are struggling to even pay themselves, and that's not acknowledged in this motion. And in regards to the stuff that you do talk about in regards that are in your control, I would say, don't sign the contracts then. If these people, and you know they're doing fire and rehire, just don't sign the contracts. Rip them up. Just say no. I don't know how hard that can be. I mean, it's if you're signing bad contracts, then by goodness, what on earth is council signing elsewhere? Because it must be signing everything off if it's not finding out due diligence in its own employers and employees that it's employing. But never mind, we'll gloss over that. And in regards to what Councillor Arnott said, I think it's important to remember that he actually said, why aren't we talking about the good stuff and why aren't we going into the things that matter that you are doing? Well, let's talk about what we are doing. But where's the pay increase in Oldham? Are you going to match that 10% this time? I'd be interested to see, Councillor Jabbar, whether or not your finances will stretch that far this year. But, you know, I suppose you can just make it up as you go along if you want. But, of course, in terms of the amendment, I think there's enough been said, but I will conclude that, you know, we either do something as a council about low pay, and we can do, and things we can do, but if the things that we can't, well, you know, write to the Prime Minister, write to the DWP, write to the Minister. We'll support that, that's not a problem. But your problem is the stuff that you're not doing in Oldham, and the stuff that's in your power. Why aren't you doing something in Oldham about what you can do? Not about what they're doing in Westminster. That's what we've got MPs for, unless you want to get rid of them. I mean, that's a possibility. I mean, perhaps we should. But if we can, let's move on to the vote, Madam Mayor, because I think I've had enough.
Does Council agree with the amendment? Those in favour? Those against? The amendment is lost. Does Council agree the motion as amended? Those in favour?
Madam Mayor, the motion isn't amended. They lost that vote.
You voted on the original then? Yeah.
The original motion.
The original, voting on the original motion. Those in favour on the original motion? No, we're moving on. Yeah.
The original motion.
The original motion. Those against?
No abstentions.
Abstentions?
The motion's carried.
Motion's carried.
We've now got 3 minutes left.
Where are we now? Motion 2. Does Council agree the alteration? I call on Councillor Munro to move and Councillor Morse to second the altered motion.
So, Madam Mayor, I wish to alter the motion under Council Procedure Rule 12.5. The amended version has been circulated to the Chamber. This is because last Monday, the Government announced 2 interrelated consultations on childcare, one concerning regulations around statutory minimum child-to-staff ratios and the other on changes to the funding formula. We've amended the motion to reflect this and to ask the Chief Executive to respond directly to the consultation rather than write to the Secretary of State for Education.
Does Council agree the alteration? I call on Councillor Munro to move and Councillor Morse to second the altered motion. Councillor Munro.
The UK has the second most expensive childcare system in the OECD. In March this year, a survey of nearly 27,000 parents of young children found that 73% of working parents say that the cost of childcare is now the same or more than the cost of their mortgage or rent. Clearly, this is unsustainable. An astonishing 99% of those parents surveyed say childcare fees are making the cost of living crisis unbearably challenging. For a town like Oldham, where working families struggle to make ends meet, childcare costs are now an untenable burden. Time and again, research has demonstrated that investment in affordable childcare systems gets more people into work, reduces the welfare bill, and importantly for Oldham, decreases the attainment gap between the richest and the poorest children. It's high time that the government recognises childcare as vital infrastructure for a high-performing economy rather than just a women's issue. Yet the sector is chronically underfunded by the Conservative government. Not only are parents struggling to shoulder the costs of childcare, some childcare providers are now worryingly fighting to stay afloat. The Early Years Alliance states that 86% of providers say that the government funding they receive is less than the cost of delivering places. Without proper investment, the sector faces a veritable cliff edge. Across the country and here in Oldham, we're already seeing the closure of nurseries, a recruitment crisis and a shortage of childcare places. Last Monday, the government finally acknowledged that the sector is in crisis and revealed their plans to consult on the funding formula and the regulations in the childcare sector. Madam Mayor, the Conservatives' grand plan to solve this crisis of affordability is to relax staff-to-child ratios, meaning they want to increase the number of two-year-old individual staff look after from 4 children to 5. The government claims that loosening regulations on child staff ratios will save money as cost savings on staff will be passed on to parents. These claims have been politely dismissed as incorrect by the Early Years Alliance and more robustly dismissed as absolute rubbish by the women's rights charity Pregnant Then Screwed. And only 2% of survey providers said that they were confident cost savings would actually be passed on to parents. Just 2%. More importantly, research shows that increasing child staff ratios will reduce the quality of early education, just when toddlers born into a pandemic need greater individual support, not less. Madam Mayor, providers don't want this, parents don't want this, and experts have warned against it. Labour demands a fairer funding deal for the early years sector, and in particular for Oldham, where funding for both 2-year-olds and 3 to 4-year-olds is considerably lower than the national average, the GM average and our statistical neighbours. We mandate the Chief Executive of this Council to respond to the Government's consultation, outlining our concerns around both the lack of investment in the sector and in Oldham in particular, as well as the proposed changes to statutory minimum staff-to-child ratios. Please support the motion.
Councillor Moores, to second. Councillor Moores, can I just
Madam
advise
Mayor.
that, Councillor Moores, can I just point out that we're running out of time. You've got 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second the motion. To become successful learners, children need to grasp essential skills and abilities such as speech and language, social skills and awareness of physical space. That is why the early years of a child's life are so important. They are a time for building the foundations for a child's lifelong learning and well-being. Yet funding for early years is sadly lacking. Tinkering at the edges and changing the statutory minimum staff-to-child ratios certainly won't help. It will make things worse. And changes to the funding formula won't solve the problem either. Since we put the original motion together, things have changed rapidly. On Monday the 27th of June, the government announced its consultation and Nadeem Zahawi was Education Secretary. On the 5th of July, it was announced that the Education Secretary was Michelle Donnellan, but she stood down after 36 hours. So we now have James Cleverly. Being able to name the Education Secretary isn't a key skill when you're 5 years old, but speech and language is. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I have received confirmation that due to illness, Councillor Sharp will no longer second the amendment. The Chief Executive has been notified and Councillor Arnott will now second the amendment. I call on Councillor Quigg to move and Councillor Arnott to second the amendment. Can I just say that there's no time for debate and can we just ask you to formally move and second the amendment, please?
Madam Mayor, I'll move the amendment.
Second, Madam Mayor, move to vote if you wish.
Does Council agree the amendment? Those in favour? Those against? Abstentions? The amendment is lost. So we're now voting on the original motion. Those for? Those against? Abstentions? The motion's carried. Move on to item 10, and this is a notice of opposition business. I have received confirmation that due to illness, Councillor H. Gloucester will no longer second the amendment. The Chief Executive has been notified and Councillor Murphy will now second the amendment. I call on Councillor Kenyon to move and Councillor Murphy to second the motion. Councillor Kenyon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Newsom and Ridgway's report is a challenge to every single one of us in this borough. The consequences of that report will take a long while to unpick. There's a lot that we don't agree on, but there's two simple things we can do straight away to make a change. This motion does what it says on the tin. It will mean that every single time that someone in the council makes a decision, they'll explicitly have in their mind, will this increase safeguarding and will this mean more money for the borough? Despite its technical nature, this motion will have a real-world impact every single day. A lot of the time, politics in this borough seems to be pantomime. I'm appalled with the abuse that has happened. I am appalled with the way that survivors have been treated, and I'm appalled by those using the pain of survivors as a political football to score points, or worse, as a way to earn money. I'm hoping that colleagues from all parties can come together for a simple change that will benefit all who live and work in this borough, and one that hopefully will be amongst the first of many positive responses to this report. I note the administration's amendment and we accept it.
Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On behalf of Councillor Gloucester, who has got COVID, and I wish her a speedy recovery, I rise to second this motion, not only because of the issues that have come to light in the recent CSE report, but in believing that the safety of our children and vulnerable adults is paramount. Where systems can be strengthened around our safeguarding practices, they absolutely should be. This motion is intended to do exactly that. It will provide further safeguarding questions to be investigated prior to agreements or contracts being let, specifically in the areas that may have slipped by previously. Due to the consequence of a decision not being investigated thoroughly. This, as we all know, can lead to unexpected incidents and situations arising, which, if considered more carefully at the procurement stage, could have been dealt with. I'm not sure some will complain that this result is a more paperwork exercise, but unfortunately, where safeguarding is concerned, there can never be too much paperwork, and we have learned, if we've learned nothing from the CSE review, this is one area that we all need to learn from and address immediately. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, could we move this straight to the vote, the motion as amended? Thank you.
Yeah, right, I've got to, we am aware of the amendment, and I've got Councillor Mustache to move and Councillor Stretton to second an amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be quick. First of all, I'd like to thank Councillors Kenyon and Gloucester for bringing it, and Councillor Murphy for covering for Councillor Gloucester tonight, and I hope she gets well soon. Importantly, it highlights a large number of decisions the council does make and the positive impact that they have on our residents. It's not always clear what the impact of decisions will be at the time the decisions are made, and that's why we have the process that we have currently around the equality impact assessments. I'd like to reassure Councillors Kenyon, Gloucester and Murphy and others, along with colleagues across the Chamber, that reference is often made to these assessments before, during and after decisions. Myself and colleagues often question officers on them and highlight areas of potential impact based on our knowledge of the communities we serve. We are working on a new approach which we are planning to borrow from Cornwall Council. They have developed a visual wheel approach to impact assessments, one where every decision must include a rating and description for how that decision impacts upon each priority that the Council has. This, along with the recommendations of the motion, will, I'm sure colleagues will agree, improve the overall process. I ask colleagues to accept the amendment. We get this through together and get on with the work. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Stratton.
I'll be quicker. I rise to formally second the amendment.
Does any member wish to speak on the amendment? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be very brief. An equality impact assessment like this is an evidence-based approach designed to help organisations ensure that the policies, practices, events and decision-making processes are fair and do not present barriers to participation or disadvantage by protected groups from participation, that they do not inadvertently disadvantage anyone, and that where possible they proactively advance equality, diversity and inclusion. This was one of the key themes the safeguarding and Bernardo's training last year brought out. As a child grows into an adolescence, they are increasing a risk of harm and abuse that takes place outside of the home as they navigate through different environments. So, having looked at our EIAs on the Council website, it has not been changed to cover important aspects, and I take on board what the Councillor has said. Surely now, as he has said, it's time to look at it, and I'm really glad he has, but we have a duty to protect children and vulnerable people, more so in this. This is about safeguarding. There are too many accusations out there to be untrue. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, my apologies before for jumping in early. Can I move to the vote on this item, please?
Yeah, is that seconded? Yeah. We're just going to move to the vote.
We've got to agree the closure motion.
Right. So we've added a closure motion by Councillor Sheldon. We got a seconder for that?
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
And can we vote on that, please, for agreement?
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. Right. So, Councillor Kenyon, do you want to write a reply?
No, I'm skipping that, Madam Mayor, thanks.
Councillor Mushtaq?
No, fine. Move to the vote. Thank you.
Right, just move to the vote. So, does Council agree the amendment? Those in favour? Those against? Abstentions? So that's carried. So does any member wish to speak on the motion as amended? No? Just move to the vote. Those in favour?
Motion was amended.
Yeah, the motion is amended. Those in favour, yeah. Those against? Abstentions?
Unanimous.
Carried.
Okay.
So we go on to motion 2. I call on Councillor Hoban to move and Councillor Wilkinson to second the motion. Councillor Hoban.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to be brief so that people can debate this motion. I know it's very contentious for some and it's very down at the heart for the rest of us.
Some of the stuff that I'll mention tonight has been mentioned before, but I think it needs saying. But before I go on to the main part of my proposal, I'd just like to address some things that have been done here this evening. For Councillor Taylor, and it's not my job to support them really, but for Councillor Taylor calling the Conservatives disingenuous for not putting a motion forward, as I understand, Councillor Arnott and the Conservatives did that so that we could debate this very serious motion and allow the time for this. So, and then I'll go on to Councillor Chatterton's statement at the beginning, and I think if anybody listened to that, I know that there was some reaction from the crowd, but if anybody did listen to that, all the 4 points that she made would lead you into thinking that we do need an independent public inquiry. Because everything that she said leads to that. So, putting this motion forward tonight, we've had the review, which highlighted what some of us thought all along, that failings had happened and there was grooming going on. That's been admitted by a previous leader of the council. The public meeting that we had has still left lots of questions unanswered. We found out that the review was restricted, too narrow, too few cases looked at. Regardless of what was said 2 weeks ago in this place, there was advice not to question some of the victims. That's been laid down in paper and can't be denied anymore. The victim declared the review was not fit for purpose. So before, we've had previous leaders, one's denied anything was going on, one's admitted it, one's offered apologies. We need answers, and the victims need answers, and the public need answers, and until we get them, this cloud above this administration will not move. We can't move on. Multiple failings have happened. General apologies, no good. No good with sweeping statements of we did wrong, or we have now learned. We need a public inquiry, an independent one, to tell us who failed and why, to tell us who knew and why, and who did nothing about it and why. And they're the questions that these victims deserve answers to, and that's why we put this motion forward. It's not to delay any more victims coming forward. We pressed victims to come forward. We understand if they feel uneasy approaching the council, if they feel uneasy approaching GMP, they can use us as an outlet as councillors. We're open to that. This should not delay anything for any more victims. But we put this motion to you for all members in here to look into yourselves and think, what do we need to do for the victims, not for ourselves? We need the truth, and that's what this motion is stressing for. Let's have the truth once and for all, with a public, independent inquiry into everything that has gone on in and behalf of this council.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In seconding this motion, I feel it couldn't have come at a more appropriate time. Yesterday's revelations from the Telford inquiry only go to further confirm the appalling grooming and rape of our young girls going back decades. The opening statement by Judge Tom Crowther, who oversaw this investigation, was illuminating by his honesty. A 3,000-page, 4-volume document highlighting the failings of the police and the council. What did we get? A 200-page review. That covered the same period of time. In one respect, I felt like I was suffering from deja vu, but sadly, only in respect to the circumstances, which are so very similar to those of Oldham's assurance review. However, the thoroughness and candid comments from Judge Crowther, I feel, is something we have not been privy to here in our borough. I have spoken personally with 3 survivors of historic CSE. Their lives have been ruined by this exploitation. All 3 were 12-year-old when this grooming and abuse started. No child should go through this. I accompanied one such victim in company with my fellow councillor Brian Holbin and Maggie Oliver to see the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police. The Chief Constable, as much as he made a heartfelt apology it does not in any way go to repairing the physical and mental abuse caused. I appeal to the other parties. Forget the colour of your rosettes. Do what you believe to be the right thing. Let Oldham lead the way in what isn't just a local problem, but a national one. We cannot keep turning a blind eye to this abuse, and when discovered, saying, sorry, mistakes have been made, and we will look to rectify them. Police, social services and the council need to work together in order to eradicate this horrendous abuse and prevent it happening again. Every agency needs to improve their standards, share information, identify potential targets and act expeditiously. Please, I appeal to you, as mothers, fathers, grandmothers, grandfathers, do the right thing and vote with the motion for a public inquiry which will give these now young women some form of justice, knowing that those responsible for the failings will be asked to explain and account for their actions.
Council, I am aware of an amendment and I call on Councillor Chadderton to move.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
And Councillor Moores to second.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
What's your point of order, please?
This amendment is a full rewrite of our motion and it should not be allowed. Part of the Council's own constitution, point 14.6.1, Part D, amendments to motions. It states that the amendment should only leave out words or add words, not replace the motion in its entirety, and not negate or introduce a new proposal. This does both of those things. It introduces Operation Sherwood and it negates our motion's main purpose for an independent public inquiry. We request clarity on this and the withdrawal of this amendment.
We've accepted that the amendment is valid. Yeah.
We have accepted that the amendment is valid and that the amendment has been nullified.
Madam Mayor, excuse me. Madam Mayor, can you please clarify then that you're going against your own constitution and what's written in it?
No,
can you please clarify for the room that you are going against your own constitution?
No, we're not. We're not.
Please refer to point 14. Please refer to point 14 that I referred to when I just spoke. You're going against your own constitution.
Yes, you are. Council's legal officer speak.
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, the legal officer is going to offer a full explanation and it'd be really helpful if you'd listen.
Obviously, further to the issue that was raised by the member, the kind of issue is whether or not the amendment, the kind of issue is whether the amendment negated the motion. The issue has been discussed with the Mayor, and the Mayor considers that it's not negating the motion. These are alternative. It's an alternative manner of dealing with the next steps in the matter.
It's deleted the sentence that is the crux of this motion. You've deleted the most important sentence out of it.
Independent investigation.
Withdraw the motion.
Madam Mayor, I can read it out for you.
Withdraw the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, Madam Mayor, obviously it was discussed with regards to the motion beforehand. The motion fails with independent view of what we should do following the outcome of the CSE review, and the amendment seeks to change it for what our view is. We took advice on it, and that was granted, as the Mayor and the Borough Solicitor have just pointed out. Just so
the Mayor's wrong.
I'm not here to speak for anybody else's review into child exploitation, but just on a point of clarity, Councillor Wilkinson, I think it was, said that Telford got a 3,000-page report over the same period. That is absolutely incorrect. You've either misunderstood the timeline of the Telford Review or misunderstood ours. The Telford Review goes back to the 80s, ours goes back to the earliest, 2006. You can shake your head all you want, Councillor Wilkinson, but when you look at the Telford report, Tom Crowther quite clearly states it goes back to the 80s, so it's over a 33-year period. Now, what I will say before going to the reasons for the motion, and where I do agree with Councillor Wilkinson, is since the publication of that report 2 weeks ago, I've spoke to a number of victims, and they came forward and ran me that week. The victims that were referenced in the report, but also other victims of CSE in Oldham, and speaking to those people and how it has affected their lives, and they were. You can't say it's destroyed their lives, because the people I spoke to, it hasn't, but it has had an impact into adulthood on a number of things, and you can't be fail to be affected by that. So in terms of the amendment, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor,
Ladies and gentlemen,
excuse me,
your
Madam Mayor,
behaviour
can
is
you
not
answer my question, please,
acceptable.
about point 14 in the Constitution and what it means? Because
Councillor Ray, Councillor Chatterton was speaking. Please
but
sit down.
no one's answering my question about point 14 in the Constitution.
Well, the solicitor gave you an answer, unfortunately.
No, he said the Mayor said it was okay, and he's wrong.
Councillor Chatterton.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor, and I hope all this doesn't eat into my time for this motion. So, I do rise to move the amendment, and that's not because we don't understand the level of concerns of Oldhamers feel about this issue, but it is because we want to see action. We want to see improvements for children and young people, and see the people that committed these disgusting crimes brought to justice. The original motion doesn't explain what benefit at all a public inquiry would have, either in providing improvements or assurance for today's children and young people, or in seeking justice for historic victims of abuse. The Oldham Review was independent, and it was run by the very same experts that the government use as commissioners and reviewers for their own safeguarding, assurance and improvement work. In addition, the original motion assumes that we haven't already reached out to national bodies throughout the review or since its publication, and this is incorrect. During the course of that review, the Home Office were briefed twice by the Council, both on the terms of reference and on the key issues arising from the review. At the conclusion of the review, the combined authority and the review team again briefed the Home Office, who have raised no concerns about the conduct or the outcome of the review, and this is seen quite clearly in the Home Office Minister's response to the adjournment debate in Parliament. The Department for Education and Ofsted have been fully briefed on the findings of the review and again raised no concerns. Our Regional Department for Education Children's Social Care Lead, Regional Director for Ofsted and the Ofsted Region Children's Social Care have all been briefed on the process and the outcomes, and again no concerns have been raised. Ofsted have been in the borough since the review to visit Rivendell. Madam Mayor, I'm not out of time because I was taken up all the time by this.
Yeah, let's end it because of the interruptions. Carry on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I said, Ofsted have been in the borough since the review to visit Rivendell, the children's home at the heart of the allegation.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Well, we haven't had the final letter. Indications are that the outcome of that inspection.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, can we take the point?
No. You've given extension to Councillor Chatterton. We've heard all this earlier on in the evening in a statement. It's blah, blah, blah and waffle. Sit down, let's vote on it.
That's not a point of order.
Councillor Oldham, that wasn't a point of order, it was a personal opinion. Carry on, please, Councillor Chatterton.
Thank you. I mean, I could replay those words back to Councillor Holbin with regards to what he said and what we feel about that, but that's where we are, Councillor Holbin. We have asked the Department for Education's Chair of the National Safeguarding Children's Panel to consider learning from Oldham.
At the start of the meeting, you advised members to pay attention to the traffic light system.
Yes.
And a number of Labour councillors have not done that, and you've allowed them to continue speaking when the traffic lights have gone off. So that should really apply to us. So it's not one rule for one,
Councillor Woodvine,
it was
the traffic light system. I advised the meeting of the traffic light system because I knew that we had a very busy agenda. However, it wasn't a strict rule.
This whole thing takes less than 4 minutes. If
all these interruptions, just carry on, Councillor Chatterton. Carry on.
We are absolutely owning this report and its findings, and we're committed to acting where we need to improve and we need to offer reassurance. However, and this comes to the fundamental issue, isn't it? That the people calling for the public inquiry are doing so not because they've got real concerns about current practice or concerns about seeking justice, but because they want a different answer to the questions raised by the review. And the reality is, for those people that peddle that narrative online, that the way the council is engaged in a cover-up of CSE and that we did nothing about it, those people will not be happy until they get a report that backs up their view of the world. The review was clear and the council was working to tackle CSE and was open about that as an issue and working to raise awareness. We do, though, accept part of the cross-party assurance group, and I'm willing to accept that that part of the motion from the opposition. I will stop that now, Madam Mayor. Thank you ever so much.
Councillor Moores to second.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I stand to second the motion. Before agreeing to second this amendment, I asked myself some questions. Would a public inquiry make a difference to what is happening now and in the future? Of course it would! Would it help or support victims of historic CSE? Would it bring justice for those still awaiting it? Would it accelerate improvements to processes, procedures and practice within the council and wider partnership? And would it prevent us repeating previous mistakes happening again? The answer to all these questions is no. I will take this opportunity to assure people we have already started the process to address these issues, and we don't want anything to divert or delay us. We have received the report from the review and we have acknowledged that mistakes were made. But now we have to rise above the noise please, and move forward. Seeking to make amends for those we have failed, ensuring current and future practice never repeats any of the mistakes made previously, and pursuing justice for those still awaiting it. As I said, the review identified and we have acknowledged past failings, but we cannot forget what has happened. We do need to move on, and I can assure you that we are committed to doing this in a manner that will allow us to achieve our objectives of bringing offenders to justice by working with Greater Manchester Police in investigating existing and new cases of CSE, providing appropriate support to historic and current victims of child sexual exploitation, offering reassurance about current practices in regard to CSE and the wider children's safeguarding agenda. We will ensure cross-party oversight and involvement in shaping our responses to the review and our wider involvement to children's services. We will continue to seek independent assurance of our current and future practice, working alongside government departments and statutory bodies to meet the challenges set out in the report. This motion makes it quite clear there is a desire to involve elected members from across the political spectrum in the process.
Councillor Moores, can I ask you to sum up, please?
We do need to work together to meet the objectives. And by setting up a cross-party working group to oversee the activities of the boards and groups mentioned in the motion, we are making this possible. Sadly, CSE will not go away. There will always be people out there looking to exploit children and young people.
Councillor
so
Moores.
We have to be vigilant. It doesn't matter what role you hold.
Councillor Moores.
Go away while you're not making inquiries into it.
Outside.
We're outside.
Sorry, all right. Okay, thank you.
I've got 4 members who have indicated that they want to speak. We're running out of time. We've got Councillor Barnes, Councillor S. Bashford, Councillor Pythium and Councillor Sam Allandini. Because of the amount of time that's left, can you just reduce your comments to one minute each to make it fair? Thank you. Can't take any more after that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Sorry. Councillor Barnes, sorry. I'll take it in the order that we received.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
1 minute.
What we've seen tonight is a travesty. It is a night that democracy died in Oldham because of what happened with the Labour amendment. It is an absolute disgrace. Now let me get to what I intend to say. What we see here tonight are panels that are meant to keep the public hemmed in. Madam Mayor, tear down these panels and let the public have their say properly. And I'll add, I will not take lessons from Councillor Stephen Bashforth about mocking the government when this is a councillor who voted twice against bringing the government in. I'm not going to take lessons from you, councillor. Don't even go there. Madam Mayor, I rise to oppose the substantive motion. As I said in the extraordinary council meeting held on the 27th of June, this is not the end. It should be the beginning. We're all corporate parents, but I don't think the Labour Party seems to realise that, because what we saw tonight from the council leader, week, was waffle and spin. Not good enough, Amanda, not good enough. We cannot ignore our responsibilities to protect children and vulnerable people of our borough and beyond. The report carried out by Newsom and Ridgway is a cover-up, and until we recognise that and a public inquiry is held to achieve justice for the victims of CSE, both historically and in the present, our town will not be able to move on. This matter transcends politics. The responses on social media and from opposition parties demonstrate that we all want to work together to achieve our aims of a public inquiry. We cannot accept an assurance review where the terms of reference were too narrow and set by Oldham Council. How is it that the council leader and the rest of the Labour councillors sat in this chamber tonight are so blinkered, not only can they not read the room, they can't read the town? They failed to see the anger, their denial to deliver justice for victims of these abhorrent crimes. Why should we be surprised? We need to work together to eradicate this corruption, or is this Labour administration happy to be seen to be failing victims by denying the justice they so richly deserve? They're failing in their duties as corporate parents. Their hypocrisy is nauseating. They sit there like whited sepulchres, all clean and pure without, but inside full of dead men's bones and their despicable selfishness.
Councillor Barnes.
Do they want to be seen to be complicit with a cover-up?
Out of time. Can I ask you to sit down,
No.
please?
You allow people time, I'll have my time, Madam Mayor. What have they got to hide? They are weak.
Councillor Barnes,
no,
the Mayor is standing.
You allow
now sit down.
To stand. I'm not sitting down.
The Mayor is standing.
Down. You allowed them plenty of time. I will
disgraceful.
continue. Justice.
I have been a member of this council for 10 years. In that 10 years, I have never seen a mayor standing. Now you sit down, please.
No. You've allowed them as much time as possible.
Councillor Bashford, you've got 1 minute, please. Councillor Bashford.
Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor. Sit down. No. Madam Mayor. You want to deny them justice, Madam Mayor. You'll need to see next year. But I will not sit down.
Madam Mayor.
I will not sit down.
Can I raise a point of order?
Do not tell me to sit down.
I was stood up for a point of order first. No, you wasn't.
Madam Mayor, can I just make one point of order, please? Your instructions were 1 minute per candidate. Councillor Amdani, who has got a lot to say on this subject from our group,
we all have
will
what
not,
to say.
if he only gets 1 minute, will be severely injusted against what's happened here.
No,
so
sorry.
can I ask that they're all afforded the same amount of time.
Extend it.
Madam Mayor, my point... Is the Chief Executive finished, Madam Mayor? Madam Mayor, I have a point of order. I do not appreciate the Chief Executive instructing the leader of our group on what to do in this issue. I've seen him instructing our group and he shouldn't be doing it. He shouldn't
Councillor Woodvine,
no, stop it.
I did say
Stop
at the
trying to
start of
influence
this
councillors.
section that...
Yes, but don't influence councillors.
Not a
Not
chance.
your role.
I did say that there was 4 minutes left.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Four
Well, that's not our
speakers,
problem.
and
You
Councillor
shouldn't have allowed the leader
Councillor
to
Barnes
speak for
has
so long. You failed to control the traffic light system. So no, we're not going to sit down. If you can't control the traffic light system, maybe you shouldn't be chairing the meeting. That's the problem you've got. That's the problem. You've allowed Labour councillors to talk this out, and it's not acceptable. So no,
the Mayor told you to sit down. You are abusing your position.
Well, I'll tell you what.
You're abusing
the
your
Labour
position.
Party's abused this debate. You've allowed them more time than they're allowed.
Councillor Bashforth. Councillor Bashforth, you've got 1 minute, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I actually agree with Councillor Barnes. We have seen democracy mocked this evening by his disgraceful disrespect to yourself, by pandering to what is in effect a lynch mob attitude and encouraging that when this is a very, very serious debate. You know, as a father, a grandfather, I have serious concerns over this. And I want to see it debated in a civilised and democratic way, not with a howling mob and disrespectful of the Mayor. We saw the tone of this when the chaplain was disrespected last week. But of course, nothing this rabble, we say, this rabble will not believe you. Jesus Christ himself could tell them that they won't believe it. They have one agenda.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Point of order.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Point of order against Bashforth.
Madam Mayor, can we move to the vote on this, Madam
No,
Mayor?
Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I've got a point of order. I will not have a councillor taking the Lord's name in vain in this chamber, which Bashforth has just done. He wouldn't do it against any other god, so don't do it against mine.
Yes. I'll do it against any I want.
Right, Councillor Piffian. Councillor Piffian, you've got 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm speaking today to support this amendment to the motion. Spending taxpayers' money on another review into CSE would be a waste, in my view. The resources would be better off being ploughed into the actions that the original review recommends. Number one, the council working with GMP to bring offenders to justice. Number two, provide support to victims. Number three, provide reassurance into current safeguarding practice. Number four, ensure cross-party oversight and involvement in safeguarding and supporting victims. And the fifth one, to raise greater awareness of child sexual abuse, how to spot it and how to report it. I ask all members to support this amendment and stop using this serious issue as a political football.
Councillor Alan Dye. 2 minutes if you can.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm really speaking to the Labour group about the amendment. With regards to what you proposed and what you end up with, I'm not offended by it, but it's not enough. GMP failed to provide information to the investigation that happened. And while I couldn't tell you honestly whether a public inquiry would be the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, while I couldn't tell you that, by just removing all indication that there should be something that continues afterwards, I do not agree with that amendment. I do believe that Greater Manchester Police should be investigated for the failure not just here, but elsewhere. And the reason why I'm not happy with the amendment is it just ignores that. And as a group, you need to find a way to consider that there are still further failings, and you need to engage with that and find ways to progress that. What you are doing at the moment comes across, regardless of intention, sorry, I put a minute timer so I wouldn't go past it, it comes across as defensive and ignoring some of the issues. And regardless of whether that is your intention, you need to find a way to get past that. And just shutting down whether there could be a further investigation doesn't do that. So please find a better way.
Does Councillor Holbein wish to reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do wish to reply. I think it's some of the things that have just happened in the debate now, and Councillor Pithian there. How dare you bring money into this? How dare you bring money into this? If you want to save money, stop wasting it on spindles and stuff like that. I'd rather spend it on this investigation than on that shopping centre. To bring money into this debate is disgraceful. This isn't a party issue. This should be human beings thinking of what these victims have gone through. There's a victim in this room tonight. Not a one of yous have approached them to see how they are. Not a one of yous have asked if there's anything you can do. All you want to do is shut this down. This amendment, all this amendment does, if you vote for this amendment instead of the full motion, you're not here for your constituents. You're not voting for them. The people that have put you here want you to vote for this motion without the amendment. What you're doing is putting your party first. You're putting everything before the victims, before the people. The people, if you don't vote for this motion in its entirety, the people will ask, what are you afraid of? What are you hiding? And who are you trying to protect as councillors? And that is disgraceful. We should be thinking of the victims, and only a full, independent public inquiry will get to the bottom of it. And before I sit down, I will just say to the members, if you vote for this amendment and not the full motion, if we don't get an independent public inquiry, we will carry on until we do, until people have voted you out and we can get it done. And whatever it is, whatever your party is promising you, whatever that 30 pieces of silver is to betray these victims, I hope it comes back and haunts you.
Councillor Chatterton.
Is this my right to reply before the vote? Yeah. Yeah, I've not really got much to say, Madam Mayor. As I said before, some people are never going to be happy. It's quite clear they're never going to be happy. A question was asked, we had an answer. They don't like the answer, so they want to keep on asking the question. The irony of Councillor Quigg using it, also that analogy with the EU before, was amusing. But we are where we are. We are training into, conspiracy territory theory. Victims have to be front and focus, and we'll be pushing the amendment and hope everybody votes for it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, can I request a recorded vote?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Agree. Okay.
1 second.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, does Council agree the amendment? Those in favour?
Did 5 members?
Yes,
yeah.
we did.
We had enough. We had enough.
Yeah.
So it's a recorded vote.
Yeah.
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 Okay, Madam Mayor, I'll do that then. Okay, when I count out your name, please say clearly whether you're for, against, or abstaining, please.
Can you just tell them what they're voting for?
They're voting for the amendment. Okay, is that clear? So everybody's voting for the amendment. Councillor Ahmed. Councillor Akhtar. Councillor Al-Hamdini.
Against.
Councillor Ali. Councillor Alias.
For.
Councillor Arnott.
Against.
Councillor Azad. Councillor Ball. Councillor Barnes.
Against.
Councillor Bashforth.
For.
Councillor Bashforth-Stephen. Councillor Birch.
For.
Councillor Brownridge. Councillor Byrne. Councillor Chatterton.
For.
Councillor Shahan. Councillor Cosgrove.
For.
Councillor Dean. Councillor Chris Gloucester.
Against.
Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Hamlet.
Against.
Councillor Harrison. Councillor Hindle.
Against.
Councillor Horbin. Councillor Hume. Councillor Hussain Aftab. Councillor Hussain Feeder. Councillor Hussain Sajed. Councillor Islam. Councillor Iqbal.
For.
Councillor Jabbar. Councillor Kenyon. Councillor Lancaster. Councillor Marland. Councillor McLaren. Councillor Moores.
For.
Councillor Munro. Councillor Murphy.
Against.
Councillor Mushtaq. Councillor Nasheen. Councillor Fithian Clint. Councillor Quigg.
Against.
Councillor Rhea.
Against.
Councillor Sheldon. Councillor Shuttleworth. Councillor Stretton. Councillor Surgeon. Councillor Taylor.
For.
Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Williams. Councillor Williamson.
Against.
Councillor Woodvine.
Against.
And Councillor Gary.
So the results are 30 for, 20 against, so the amendment is carried.
We now vote.
Does any member wish to speak on the motion as
Move
amended?
to vote, Madam Mayor. I believe we're out of time now for opposition business, and there's no other time for speaking on the motion.
Seconded, Madam Mayor. Order, Madam Mayor. Who's deciding this?
So we're now voting on the motion that's been amended. So those in favour for, show of hands. Those against? Abstentions?
We have this recorded as well.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. I actually raised what was going on, so why have we not been had the opportunity? I raised the point of order. I raised the question. You didn't answer the question. The Chief Executive dismissed it. Why could we not have a recorded vote? Sonny was about to ask for a recorded vote and you moved on.
It needs 5 people to ask for a recorded vote, and we were already
Sorry,
into it.
forgive me. I've asked the Mayor the question, not the Chief Executive. I didn't realise we had a combined post at the minute.
Right, we're moving on. Item 11.
Can we have a recorded vote, please?
Too late. Voting.
We want to know.
Item 11.
Ask them they can have their name recorded. No, it's too late.
Don't explain the position.
Yeah, go on.
In terms of as regards to recorded vote, it's got to be requested before the voting on the matter, and the mayor had asked for the vote to be taken.
Point of order.
If it was too late for a recorded vote.
Point of order.
If a member can, after the vote is taken, a member can ask for an individual member recorded vote.
Point of order.
Point of order, Councillor Oldham.
Point of order. It was so rushed by Councillor Chatterton and somebody else to rush to the vote that a lot of the people in here didn't hear and didn't get the opportunity to ask for a recorded vote. So I'm politely asking if we can have a recorded vote. We've already had, and it's on record now, that the Mayor thinks the Constitution, she can ride roughshod over that. So let's not ride roughshod over this, please.
No.
The vote has already been taken. However,
why is the Chief Executive answering
the
the question?
solicitor will explain that you can have your vote recorded.
Point of order.
Is that right? Explain it.
Madam Mayor, point of order.
Ladies and
Just explaining
gentlemen,
the Constitution.
ladies and gentlemen, you're getting upset about something, so what we're trying to do is explain. Now,
Point of order, Madam
the
Mayor.
the best advice I can give
Point
you
of order.
is to listen. If you're not prepared to listen, then there you go, it's your choice.
Point of order. Why are you allowing the Chief Executive to speak? He is not elected in this chamber. You are the Mayor. You should be chairing this. We've asked for a recorded vote. Why is the Chief Executive and the Borough Solicitor declining a recorded vote? It's been asked for by Councillor Hoban. There should be a recorded vote.
Councillor Barnes, you'd already voted. You've already voted. You can't vote twice on the same
But
thing.
you didn't give people the chance to vote.
Right, the borough, if you're quiet, we'll give you an explanation from the Borough Solicitor.
Can I explain the procedure rule? A recorded vote has got to be requested before the vote's taken. The vote was taken. What members can request, though, is that immediately after the vote is taken, they can request that person's vote against the matter in question, whether if it can be an individual member recorded vote after the vote. The vote was taken, so if it's too late to ask for the recorded vote, each member can request for the...
Mr. Entwistle,
we're happy with that.
The vote was moved so quickly that people didn't realise. Councillor Hoban is right, we should have a recorded vote. This is not fair, it's not democracy, and it needs to stop in this chamber tonight.
Madam Mayor, can I say a point of order? Okay, is it possible to amend standing orders in the duration of the council to allow the recorded vote? Because we're getting bogged down in something that I don't think it's necessary to, and people are getting wound up. So if people want a recorded
Call
vote
the Constitution,
and
Amanda.
we are able to amend standing orders during the council, then I'd be happy to support that. And so would my group if we want a recorded vote. Okay?
Is that seconded? Yeah, that's seconded. Suspend standing orders.
Yeah. It has to be agreed.
Right, has it been agreed, yeah? We're suspending standing orders for a recorded vote.
Okay, council orders have been suspended. If you allow me to speak, I will read out your name. Please indicate clearly whether you are for, against or abstaining. So, Councillor Ahmed.
Can you just remind them what they're voting on, Harry? Just remind them what they're voting on.
Okay, can I remind everybody, at the request of Councillor Hoban, you are now voting on the motion as amended. The amended has already been carried. You are voting on the motion as amended. Okay? Let me now go through. Voting on motion as amended. Councillor Ahmed. Councillor Akhtar. Councillor Al-Hamdani.
Thank you. Against.
Councillor Ali. Councillor Alias.
For.
Councillor Arnott.
Against.
Councillor Azad. Councillor Ball. Councillor Barnes.
Against.
Councillor Bashforth Marie.
For.
Councillor Bashforth Stephen. Councillor Birch.
For.
Councillor Brownridge. Councillor Byrne. Councillor Chatterton.
For.
Councillor Shawhan. Councillor Cosgrove.
For.
Councillor Dean. Councillor Gloucester Chris.
Against.
Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Hamlet.
Against.
Councillor Harrison. Councillor Hindle.
Against.
Councillor Hoban.
Against.
Councillor Hume. Councillor Hussain Aftab. Councillor Hussain Feeder. Councillor Islam. Councillor Iqbal. Councillor Jabbar. Councillor Kenyon. Councillor Lancaster. Councillor Marland. Councillor McLaren. Councillor Moores.
For.
Councillor Munro. Councillor Murphy.
Against.
Councillor Mushtaq. Councillor Nasheem. Councillor Fithian. Clint. Councillor Quigg.
Against.
Councillor Rhea.
Against.
Councillor Sheldon. Councillor Shuttleworth. Councillor Stretton. Councillor Surgeon. Councillor Taylor.
For.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Against.
Councillor Williams. Councillor Williamson.
Against.
Councillor Woodvine.
Against.
And Councillor Gary.
For. The motion as amended is carried. I intend to move on to item 11, which is updates and actions from the Council. I call on Councillor Chatterton to move and Councillor Gloucester to second the report.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Does any member wish to speak?
Madam Mayor,
Councillor Woodbine.
I just wondering if we could write to Councillor Warrington in Tameside. I'm not sure if she's still chairing the Pensions Fund, and just advise that my name's spelt with a V and not a B. Thank you.
Does the Council agree the recommendations as detailed in the report?
Agreed.
Item 12, the revision to Council financial procedure rules. Can I call on Councillor Chatterton to move and Councillor Sheldon to second the report?
Move, Madam Mayor.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Does any member wish to speak? Does Council agree the recommendations as detailed in the report? Item 13, revision to the contract procedural rules. I call on Councillor Chadderton to move and Councillor Groston to second the report.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Gloucester?
Agreed.
Second the report. Does any member wish to speak? Does Council agree the recommendations as detailed within the report?
Agreed.
Agreed. Item 14, Health and Wellbeing Report Board Terms of Reference. I call on Councillor Chadderton to move and Councillor Sheldon to second the report.
Move, Madam Mayor.
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Does any member wish to speak? Does Council agree the recommendations as detailed in the report? Agreed.
Agreed.
Item 15, Overview and Scrutiny Annual Report. I call on Councillor McCallum to move and Councillor Ahmed to second the report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In moving the Overview and Scrutiny Report, I wish to take this opportunity to thank the officers and members who have contributed to the annual programme undertaken by the Policy, Health and Performance and Value Committee, Value for Money Committees during the past year. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Brownridge.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Does any member wish to speak? Does the mover wish to reply? Does Council agree the recommendations as detailed within the report? That concludes the business for this evening. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.